where they're incapable of consent by
Yeah.
reason of some factor of being less than 17 years old.
Oh, okay. So this is like the
And
definition of grape
I'm
that
on New
only
York
that only would
State.gov's website.
Okay, well, so yeah, you're just defining a statute of grape as it would apply to child grape specifically.
No. This reads this for all of them except for number 4 or no, number
What?
6, being 21 years or old or more, he or she engages in backdoor contact with another person less than 17, and then it goes on to continue where it this outlines there's 9 of them. There's 9 of them. So there's 9 different definitions under this definition. What I'm saying is she couldn't prove that he raped her because she didn't know whether it was his finger or his male member.
Right, and they could only prove a preponderance of evidence for finger as that was the minimal charge.
Okay, so being logical here, being caught in that situation, how would you not know whether it was a finger or the male member?
Sir, have you ever been raped?
Yes, I have.
So have
and I was molested from 4 to 9 years old by 2 male cousins.
So have I.
So I know what it is like.
So have I. And
okay.
And the reason why I asked you that question and why it is actually very important, and like I bet both you and I can have an understanding here, is that the retroactive. What's a good way for me to describe this?
You're trying to talk about the mental psychosis that one would face in that situation.
One moment. Thinking back to an experience in which many individuals have tried to forget, have automatically suppressed, and in this case had happened over 20 years ago. I think that not knowing what you were penetrated with, either it was fingers or the male member, makes perfect sense when she is described not only in the court proceedings, but also in her interview with Anderson Cooper, that during the entirety of the experience that she described as short, she was fighting the entire time. Okay. And I actually find this to be one of the most intellectually lazy counter arguments against the grape case, because I find it to be incredibly reasonable to understand that this victim was not focused on what was happening to her in the sense of was it his fingers or the member, but rather focusing on getting whatever the hell was happening to her to stop through a fight. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
If you just give me like another 10 seconds here, that you're changing the topic of conversation.
No, we can go back to it. I'm not. Okay. But have you read her book? I have.
Have I read her book? I've not read the entirety of her book. However,
you should read her book.
I have read parts.
Yeah, you should, and that would enlighten you to several things. Where in her own book, she recalls other instances in great detail of what happened to her. Because this is not the first time she's been in this situation, unfortunate situation as it is. But she, in her book, she recalls in great detail. I mean, like right down to smells, to what the weather was like that day in her book, as to what transpired with other individuals and how it made her think and how it made her feel. So how is it that she can't recall this one instance?
I believe that she did recall what happened to her in great detail. Like once again, just I believe that somebody else on the live that I was just on had played a clip of her describing exactly what happened to her and the emotions in which she expressed and underwent in more detail than I'd honestly expect many to be able to describe it with. I know if I was in a position, let's say I was 40 years old and 20 years ago, I was raped inside of a changing room, and I was automatically went into a mode of fight, get myself out of this situation. I wouldn't remember the details that she did. I mean, she was able to recall the mental states that she was experiencing. She was able to recall the fact that she'd been slammed against the wall and things that happened to her in very great detail. And I feel like we've already went over the fact that she wasn't focused on exactly what was happening to her in the sense of it was fingers or a male member, but rather focusing on whatever was happening to her to get it to stop. Not to mention that in the civil proceedings, right, she has to make statements under oath, right?
That doesn't mean anything.
It does. That must, that in her mind must lead to a liability claim that needs to be upheld by the jury. So of course it makes sense for her to be open and honest that it was either the fingers or the male member, with him then finding sufficient evidence for the minimal charge of the fingers. And I hate this line of thought, man. It's just, I know that I'm presenting myself in a very held together manner, very cohesive manner, but, you know, this line of thought is just so terrible to me. I truly do hate it. But Lumberjack, anyways, I do appreciate you for your concession on that first point, that of course the jury ruled unanimously when you argued they didn't. I appreciate your concession on the point that, well, of course they didn't answer number 3 because the jury instructions literally instructed them not to, because sexual abuse implies force inherently. Do you have anything else that you want to go over, such as other reasons why you voted for Donald Trump, or you still support him until today?
No, I'm going to continue to support him. He's doing exactly what I voted for.
Okay.
We have the border, for example, since you want a specific place to start, the border crossings have decreased over 90%.
Okay. I agree. I think that border crossings have gone down since, sorry, I just got a text from my girlfriend, since Donald Trump's inauguration. And I don't care. Would you like to know why?
Why?
Because every single executive order signed into law by Donald Trump as it pertains to the border has been a Band-Aid on a 4-inch incision, okay? He has not advocated for any long-term solution to reduce undocumented migration, not in his second term and not since he started campaigning.
It's been in there 71 days.
If you listen to what I said, not since he started campaigning in 2015. I have a question for you. What is the root cause of undocumented entry into America?
Well, we have the whole overstaying of student visas would particularly be the number one. And then after that one, green card violations. And then after that one would be crossings where people claim, what do you call it? Refugee ship. And then their paperwork not being valid.
I don't think.
And then you have,
I don't think I made my
your regular
clear.
immigration status.
I don't think I made my question clear. And that's fine. I mean, let me ask my question to you in a more clear manner. But before we do, everybody that's just tuning in on YouTube, welcome into the stream, you guys. It's super good to have you here with me today. We're already in the middle of a debate with our first guest of the day, Mr. Lumberjack, and we are just starting a discussion on immigration. So I thought I'd start my live over here so we could broadcast this conversation to as many people as possible. But anyways, let's just go ahead and hop into it. I asked Lumberjack what is the root cause of undocumented entry into America, and I feel as if I need to further clarify my question.
Yeah, clarify.
What I'm meaning to ask here is, why have so many individuals decided to enter into America with the use of undocumented means compared to legal means? What is driving people to take those undocumented methods compared to the legal means of entry?
You tell me your reasoning behind that.
Sure. I think it's because the legal means of entry into America are slow. The legal means of entry into America are expensive. The legal means of entry into America have been neglected by all of Congress, which does include Democrats, for all of modern American history to be used as a talking point to run campaigns. However, I do think that this issue is the most pronounced by Trump and by Maga. But that opinion aside, would you agree with me on a very base level here that slow, neglected, expensive, bad legal means of entry into America is what has incentivized so many individuals to enter into America with the use of undocumented means?
Wait a minute. That makes no sense, because, okay, I can agree. I wholeheartedly agree that the process is slow, and has become slower over time due to the fact that they have moved and shifted under multiple different presidents. They are focused from actually taking care of the people that were already in the process the proper way, and focus on the people that were not in the process the proper way, and thusly pushing the ones that were doing it right back. But to say that that is the reason, because it's such a terrible system, more and more people are coming here to try to get in, that doesn't make sense, especially because now with Trump doing what he is doing with the deportation of everybody and making it basically a demonized thing for someone to do, it should make less people want to come, which it has. So why is it different under him, where there's less crossings and border encounters as opposed to other presidents?
Okay. So can you clarify on your question? Because I'm not so sure what you're asking. What I just heard from you is, you told me that you think my explanation of what incentivizes so many individuals to enter into the country with the use of undocumented means is wrong.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Because
Not that it's wrong. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Would you like me to try to make it make sense for you, or would you like to provide me with the reason why you don't think it makes sense?
I got you. I'll tell you why I don't think it makes sense.
Perfect.
Because you said because the system in which we have to get people into this country legally and the right way is terrible.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the words you used. It's terrible that people just come anyway.
That individuals instead opt to use illegal or undocumented means to enter into our country. Yes, that's my argument.
And full well knowing that that's going to result in more than likely them being kicked out of the country. Why would they risk it?
Okay, well, you're asking you're asking people like, why would they risk undocumented entry into America? But that's not a response to my statement, is what incentivizes individuals into entering with the use of undocumented means in the first place. I'm sure that I could try to provide you reasons why individuals would risk undocumented entry. It's probably I don't know, I could speculatively say, well, it's because if they were to use undocumented entries that comes with a risk of deportation, they at least still have a potentiality of being in America, functioning as a productive provider, making money to provide for themselves and their families, compared to the absolute lack of any potentiality for that in the next 8 to 9 years if they were to use legal means of entry. But you're still not really answering my position. So anyways,
wait, because if you look at my response as to why it was like it is because you had people like Biden say, hey, come in. Whereas I can say for certain, one thing that Barack Obama did do well was no, don't come in. And he made it very pronounced that these people should not be doing this and that they would be held to the fullest extent of the law if they did break it, and that they would be deported. That I applaud Obama for that. Trump did the same thing and is doing the same thing, but you have people like George Bush who didn't do it. You have people like Bill Clinton who didn't do it. You have people like Biden who didn't do it. I agree with you that Congress is the real issue.
So I would like to respond to the first claim. You said Biden said, hey, come in. I do not think that Biden said, come into our country with the use of undocumented means. As I could specifically recall Kamala Harris standing in front of a camera saying, do not come.
She wasn't the president.
Okay? But I will say here that I disagree with mass deportation. I do not think that we should deport undocumented immigrants that have not committed violent crimes. I think that mass deportation places America last. I think that mass deportation cripples, the manufacturing sector in American industries. I think that mass deportation slows GDP growth, reduces average qualities of lives, and is very, very, very fucking expensive. Okay? I think the better solution is to offer undocumented migrants that have not committed a violent crime a pathway to residency or citizenship. The reason I think that's a better solution is it's a way to completely get rid of the issue of millions of undocumented migrants that are not vetted in our country, while also serving to the best interests of our country and everybody in it, including the citizens and undocumented migrants.
Wait, so you're against mass deportation because one of the reasons you said because it's expensive. Do you know how much it costs to do you know how much it costs to deport one person?
How much does it cost to deport one individual?
$17,000.
I do not know how much it costs to deport one individual, but what I do know is that the Republicans in the House came to a resolution that mass deportation would cost $175 billion up front, with a reoccurring opportunity cost of $100 billion per year, which is the amount of taxes that undocumented migrants pay on the federal, state, and local level annually, on top of the opportunity cost of a smaller labor force, meaning that our economy is less productive, and the money that they pay into the GDP. And then a complete flip side of the coin is that right now, undocumented migrants get lower wages on average compared to U.S. citizens. Some sources would indicate that we have gaps of upwards of 35%.
Slave labor.
And my question is, why do undocumented migrants get paid lower wages on average compared to U.S. citizens? Wait. Did you just call that slave labor?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're still getting paid at the minimum wage. So you think that working at the minimum wage is slave labor?
No, because some of them are majority of them are being paid under the minimum wage.
So I'm not okay with accepting that. I would say that it is more likely that an undocumented migrant is paid under the table, not in accordance with labor laws. I think that the claim that it's majority is a little bit crazy.
Okay, so last year they paid in $95.6 billion in taxes,
Base.
and they cost the American people on average annually $150 billion in taxes. So
Wow.
there's no, the offset's not there for that.
I actually dispute that.
Well, okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, I know where you're pulling that number from. You're pulling that number from it's the House Republicans. They did a huge study. It's in a PDF off of the House's.gov website, where they come to.
You don't have to tell me where that is because I haven't seen that.
Well, it's where you're pulling that $157 billion number from.
No, it's $152 billion annually.
Yeah.
And I'm not pulling it from a PDF. I'm doing it actually from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics of undocumented workers, what they pay versus what they cost the American people.
So
and
I know
that
the study that
number
you're referencing, the reason why I disagree with that is because that includes a lot of provisions for the children of undocumented migrants that are born in America as natural U.S. citizens, such as costs for education or costs for food stamps and EBT for the kids that are natural U.S. born citizens. When we isolate specifically for federal assistance and forms of programs that just benefit undocumented migrants, we see that there's not many. For instance, the only federal program that I can think of that directly benefits undocumented migrants would be the fact that in 2015 we passed legislation to allow undocumented migrants to seek emergency care in hospitals. And I mean, I think right now on the federal level, Medicare expenses $16.5 billion per that every year, which includes uninsured American citizens. Can you think of any other federal programs that just benefit undocumented migrants and not their children that are natural U.S. born citizens to account for that $152 billion figure?
Well, here's the problem is because you're not taking into account all the money that the states are asking from the federal government to maintain these. Like California overspent.
I can think of
Medi-Cal. I know. Medi-Cal specifically, they were told that, citizens of California were told they were only going to spend so much, and they end up spending 35% over what was told to them. And then in Illinois, they were told that they would only spend $800 million, and they end up spending on these undocumented people and illegals or whatever, however you want to classify them. They end up spending $1.6 billion on them. So
honestly, usually because it's Louisiana, I'd ask you for a source.
Illinois,
because it's Illinois, I'd ask you for a source.
I have a website.
Assume that that's true. I'm fine with that.
No, you don't have to assume. I can pull that up real quick, fast and hurry, because I did it on my podcast.
Yeah,
where Pritzker,
I don't mind just assuming
Pritzker gets up there and apologizes, and then we have mayor.
I guess because you have a source, like I'll just ask you, what is that for? Medicare? Or sorry,
no, it's their healthcare, whatever their healthcare in Illinois is.
Good.
And then in New York City, you had the mayor ask the federal government for $1 billion, 3 separate occasions when they were trying to, allow them to stay in the hotels and so forth.
Oh, no, okay. Well, now we're getting into misinformation. So when we're referencing housing in the context of hotels, such as the Roosevelt Hotel in the state of New York.
No, I'm talking about how much he asked for. I don't care about the hotels. I'm talking about how much the mayor of New York asked the federal government for.
Is that money that he's asking the federal government for to pay into the systems to support asylum seekers or undocumented?
It was specifically for the people that were in his city.
Yeah, so asylum seekers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, asylum seekers are not undocumented migrants.
You do realize that 90% of asylum seekers' paperwork were not valid, correct?
So you're saying that 90% of individuals with an asylum claim are rejected. I understand that. That doesn't mean that they're undocumented migrants. You're just now arguing a completely separate issue.
They all fall under the same premise of people that we don't want here in the United States.
Well, wait, an undocumented migrant isn't somebody that you don't want in America. I want to make this clear. I don't want Trump in America. I wish that he'd just go live his life on a random billionaire beach halfway across the world and kind of just leave us alone. That doesn't mean that I think that that Donald Trump is an undocumented migrant. And then also, under my view, according to your definition of the term undocumented migrant, there are very few undocumented migrants, according to me, because I want all undocumented migrants that have not committed violent crimes to be in America. So boom, I just eradicated the issue of undocumented.
So you're pro-crime.
Allow me to finish. I just eradicated eradicated the issue. Sorry, you could unmute yourself. I don't know why I did that. I just eradicated the issue of undocumented migration into America by merely assuming your definition of what an undocumented migrant is. But just to clarify, no, that's not what an undocumented migrant is. An undocumented migrant is an individual that entered into America with the use of illegal means that does not have a legal status of a legal status in America. And then also, I think
So you're pro-crime?
so I'm actually pro-America, and the reason.
No. Are you pro-crime?
No, I'm not pro-crime.
But you said as long as they didn't commit a violent crime, you're okay with them.
But I think, would you agree with me that the reason we draft and impose legislation is to make the quality of life in America better?
No.
Okay.
No, 100% no.
Oh, 1 second.
There's only two states in the whole if you want to make the quality of life better, stop criminalizing things that shouldn't be a crime. Like, for example, homelessness.
Just real quick, lumberjack. So first and foremost, I could just go for the quick dunk. You said that I'm pro-crime. I could bring up that you voted for a crime.
No, I asked if you were pro-crime.
You asked if I'm pro-crime. I could do like a quick little like pivot and kind of deflect on a tangent about how you're pro-crime because you voted for a criminal that willfully and intentionally let violent offenders that beat up cops on January 6th out of jail, then called them patriots. But I'm going to choose not to do that because I believe that I'm not pro-crime and still support mass amnesty for undocumented migrants that have not committed a violent crime, as that produces the best outcomes for a country. And a lot of the culpability insofar as why undocumented immigrants have used undocumented means of entry into our country is specifically because of our government. And we could agree on that. I'd argue that it's because our Congress has neglected the legal means of entry into our country. And I think it was less than 3 minutes ago when you argued it's because our last president literally told them to enter in. Doesn't matter. Guess we could agree that a huge reason why undocumented entry into America has occurred is because of the government. So that's why I think most of the culpability falls on them.
But why do you continue to say violent crime? It should be any crime, because if you, Dean, commit a non-violent crime, you're going to have to pay for it regardless of what you think, feel, or believe that you were in the wrong or were in the right or whatever. You're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah,
these people that are committing non-violent
crimes outside of like undocumented
any non-violent, you just, because you keep saying these, I'm okay with not people that coming in that don't commit violent crimes.
Yeah, I'm okay with like,
but so that like, means you're pro-crime.
If there's like an undocumented migrant that like enters into America with use of undocumented means and then like commits like non-violent crimes outside of undocumented entry, I don't mind offering them a pathway to residency or citizenship.
What?
And then giving them a like due process for like the other non-violent crimes that they committed. I think that's fair.
What?
But I feel like it'd also be on like a case-by-case basis. Like I bet that we
No.
You know that you're the one that advocates for administration.
I asked you if you were pro-crime, and you just said you just doubled down on it.
So I'm not pro-crime.
But entering, yes or no? Entering illegally is a crime. Yes or no?
I'm okay with assuming that it is. I've heard people argue that it's a misdemeanor. I haven't looked at the law myself.
I don't care whether misdemeanor or felony. I don't care about that. Yes or no? It's a crime. Yes or no?
Yeah, it is a crime to enter with the use of illegal means into America.
And you just said that you would be okay if a non-violent person
they were given a pathway
came in and committed a non-violent crime, that you would still offer them a pathway to citizenship.
Yeah, and then give them due process for non-violent crimes outside of undocumented entry. I don't think that undocumented entry as a crime on its own deserves due process insofar as deportation. Yeah, of course.
That's crazy, Dean. That's crazy, bro.
Wait. If anything, you should agree with me here to a higher extent. You want to know why?
Sure, you can try to spin this, but you're not going to walk off on that one. Go ahead.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Just to clarify, what's the issue with what I just said?
You're okay with any crime. That's a problem.
You're absolutely obfuscating what I'm saying. Can I explain how?
You've already explained it 3 times. It's not going to change what you're saying.
So I want to clarify what I'm okay with. Are you ready? I'm okay with offering undocumented migrants a pathway to residency or citizenship insofar as they have not committed a violent crime. If they have committed a violent crime, I believe that we should give them due process and either deport them to their home country if they have a reliable criminal justice system where they can be housed, or kept in an American jail here if we have a more reliable criminal justice system in their own country. If they've committed non-violent crimes outside of undocumented entry into America, I believe that they should still be given a pathway to residency or citizenship, but then they should be charged with the non-violent crimes that they committed.
What's your definition of
undocumented
nonviolent crime?
I mean, we could like imply like a working definition.
Just give me 3 examples, 3 quick examples of a nonviolent crime.
Yeah, like tax evasion is a nonviolent crime.
Okay.
A speeding ticket, like going like
Okay, so victimless crimes.
3 miles over the speed limit is a nonviolent
Yeah.
crime. Jaywalking is a nonviolent crime.
Okay, so a victimless crime. Okay, so so when a person that's undocumented comes to the United States of America illegally, of course, and they get a speeding ticket in a vehicle that they do not legally own, but someone sold it to them under the table, bad on that person, and they get a speeding ticket and then they don't pay said speeding ticket, you're okay with offering that person a pathway to citizenship?
Yeah, give them a pathway to residency or citizenship and then chase them down and prosecute them for the speeding ticket and then not paying it. Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Wait a minute. Wait. So
fine
make
with
them
that.
a citizen.
Wait, how come? Wait, you're trying to call
Make
me,
them a citizen and then beat them
prosecute
up.
Wait. You think that us trying to chase down an individual that didn't pay a speeding ticket is beating them up? I'm so fucking
no.
sorry.
After the fact, after you make them a citizen,
I
after you make them a citizen.
I thought that you were a member of the party Law and Order. I just want to clarify. So, I mean, you were okay with citizens that were arrested for beating up cops on January 6th, such as
No, I'm not okay with
Rodriguez.
that. Don't put that. Don't. No, I'm not okay with that. The ones that put their hands on cops should have stayed in prison.
Okay, so you absolutely disagree with Donald Trump?
Yes, I disagree with him on that point. If they hurt someone or put their hands on someone in any form or fashion, they should have not gotten out. But everybody else that did not get, but here's a caveat. Let me give you this caveat. If those people did not receive the proper due process by way of the Constitution, I think they should have been let out. Unfortunately, because they didn't get their due process, so their rights were violated. Okay. That's the only reasoning. But I think if they got their due process and they touched somebody,
so that
I think they should.
That could be one on appeals outside of a presidential pardon. And I say in fact, like that would be the proper course of repercussion. But I'd also like to reiterate here. I mean, like obviously we have a disagreement. So like, yeah, I'm fine with like giving an undocumented migrant that like didn't pay taxes for a year or got paid under the table pathway to residency or citizenship, like proper legal recourse for the nonviolent victimless crime that they committed after the fact. That could be contested. That could be dished out. I think that's a conversation after
that's crazy.
Introduce the idea of mass amnesty. I don't think it's crazy, as I think it produces the best outcomes for America and everybody in it. And I think
how because that's more taxpayer money, because it's taxpayers that pay for prisons, both public and private. So that's more strain on the taxpayer.
Wait, so you're saying that you're not okay with the taxpayer paying money to support a criminal justice system? What?
I'm not okay with us paying for people that shouldn't be here in the first place.
Oh, okay. All right. So let me go ahead and ask you a hypothetical question here. Well, actually, it's not hypothetical because the Trump administration is insane and has already done it. Do you agree with the Laken Riley Act?
Refresh me on that, because I haven't read that in a while.
Sure. The Laken Riley Act, in a sense, what it can do is it basically allows ICE to detain and deport undocumented migrants that are accused of like violent crimes.
Okay. Why would I be against getting rid of these people?
You don't see the glaring issue?
Go ahead, give me your synopsis of it, because I'm not a mind reader.
They're being deported for a crime that they were accused of, not a crime that they were found guilty of. There would be absolutely no precedent for them to be placed through the criminal justice system and into a jail cell in their home country because of a mere accusation in America, meaning that if an undocumented migrant did really rape a kid, they were accused of it and they got deported, well, then all of a sudden you are now saying that you find no problems with child rapists roaming free in the streets of other countries.
Okay, so two issues. First issue is that they're not just deporting these people back to their home country. They're taking them to countries that will put them in prison. And this is the whole issue with that dude, one of the dudes that had the tattoo, the soccer tattoo.
So you're saying that they're going to be thrown in like a prison in El Salvador? Well, now you're saying that these individuals should have no due process and they should be placed in a jail that they can't get out of on the basis of a mere accusation.
Which leads me to the second issue. That you have 2 Supreme Court cases that took place last year. You have Mayorkas v. Beauvoir, where Ketanji Brown, that was a 9-0 decision. Ketanji Brown wrote a 15-page opinion as she was the lead on this, stating that because Congress gave the Department of Homeland Security the sole authority over green cards, visas, and immigration, that they are not to be questioned, and nor do these people obtain the rights of due process because they are here on a status that is not that of a citizen. And then you have State Department v. Manoz, where it says that they don't get due process. And that was a 3-0 decision or a 6-3 decision.
Okay, so let's assume that the Supreme Court decision that you are referencing is talking about due process to be thrown in an El Salvadorian jail cell and not just deported, scapegoating the due process perceived via an immigration court. I'm not making a legal fucking argument. I'm making a moral argument. Our government should not advocate for policy to throw people inside of an El Salvadorian jail cell on the basis of an accusation with no due process, no criminal proceeding, that they can't even then go and get the individual out of the El Salvadorian jail cell. And I find you to be an incredibly immoral individual for saying that you have no problem with that. I think what this demonstrates is a lack of a concern, a lack of any gesture of humanity for anybody that's not an American citizen. I mean, if this was an issue of American citizens, you, alongside other people on the right, would be up in arms. I mean, shit, you guys might even start evoking the Second Amendment if you're catching my drift. It is insane to say that you have no problem with taking an individual that's accused of a crime with no due process, putting them on a plane, and throwing them in a packed jail cell in El Salvador that they can't even get them out of. Man, they can't even get them out of there. They can't even say, whoops, we fucked up. This guy is innocent. He didn't actually do the crime he was just accused of committing. He stays in that jail cell. That is so bad.
Okay, so one, we don't know that we can't get them out because our government brokers deals. But are you okay with homeless people being imprisoned?
Thank you so much for the $10 over on YouTube Super Chat. I'm not okay with homeless people being in prison because they're homeless.
So why are you not advocating for the changing of laws in 48 states?
Oh, I absolutely would advocate for that. And maybe we could agree there.
Yeah, so you say I'm immoral for...
And I'd say the same thing to anybody that supports that legislation.
Being upset about non-Americans, but I'm more upset that the fact that they keep making legislation to put more of Americans in jail or fined or whatever.
What is this argument? Sir, are you saying...
I'm getting to you. Be patient. It's coming.
Okay,
it's coming.
I'll wait.
It's a slow burn, but I don't, and you can call me immoral, because at any given point in time, you care more for your own being and those that are in your life, your mom, your brother, your sister, your mother, your uncle, whatever. You care more for them than you do your neighbor in the time of trouble. So why is it, could you call me immoral?
You're making a false equivalence.
It's not a false equivalency, because if your apartment was on fire, you're not going to go put a fire out down the street. You're going to take care of your apartment first. It's just common sense.
Okay, here's why you're making a false equivalence.
Okay.
Because you're justifying the fact that you literally don't give a single shit that undocumented migrants, according to you, are being arrested, detained, and deported to an El Salvadorian jail on the basis of a mere accusation with no due process, because you'd rather first focus on American issues, such as banning laws that jail homeless individuals for being homeless in 48 states. And the reason this is a terrible argument is because you're not saying that you care more about Americans than these undocumented migrants that I just described. You're saying that you only care about the Americans and you don't give a single shit about the undocumented migrants that I just described.
No, that's not what I'm
just
saying.
Allow me to finish here. That's
not what I'm saying.
You're acting as if there is a finite amount of fucks that you could give. You're saying, here in this finite area, I only have, let's say, 10 fucks I could give. And right now, I've directed all 10 of those fucks to American citizens. Therefore, you have 0 fucks to give about undocumented migrants that are arrested on the basis of an accusation with no due process, put on a plane, then locked up in an El Salvadorian jail. Sir, I'm pretty sure that the most moderate, the most bridging the gap between us. A thing I could do right now is to tell you, okay, advocate for reform and the laws we have in place here in America. I think that's awesome. But also advocate against legislation that deports individuals, locking them up in a jail cell in El Salvador on the basis of an accusation. Both of those things are modern day atrocities that we observe in our criminal justice system and related government entities.
So you would have to disagree with the Supreme Court's decisions.
Once again, sir, I already repeated this. I'm not making a legal argument. I'm making a moral argument. If the Supreme Court ruled,
so you're saying the Supreme Court's immoral, correct?
And it is legal to put somebody in a jail in El Salvador with no evidence, no reason, no due process, that is immoral. Yes.
Okay, so that's your argumentation with immorality, and morality is with them, not with me.
So it is with you.
Because I'm all for helping. No, I'm all because you didn't ask. You just made
I did. You told me that you agree with the Laken Riley Act.
You made a presumption.
No, I asked.
You made a presumption. So because I added in the whole deportation part to El Salvador because you stated that they would be deported to their country where they might not face justice for what they may or may not have done. So I'm all for helping others after we have been helped. That includes everybody in this live.
Do you agree or disagree with the Laken Riley Act after the information I've shared with you?
I'm going to go read the Laken Riley Act. I'm not going to make a decision based off of what you stated. I need to go read it for myself.
So, okay, how about we just like read the summary together? I don't
want to. No. But I don't want to read the summary. I'm going to read the entirety of the bill because reading summaries don't give me the whole picture.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. I advocate for education. I advocate for research. I think those are all good virtues. But I just have a hypothetical question. If the Laken Riley Act gives our federal government the reserved authority to deport an individual either to their own country or to a jail cell in El Salvador on the basis of an accusation and arrest for a violent crime, do you disagree with it for the reasons I just listed?
They already have without the Laken Riley Act. Okay, that's the problem. Well, you're trying to get me to go get some act.
You could agree with other things too, but this is what if this is what the Laken Riley Act states, then would you disagree with the Laken Riley Act?
I disagree with trying to give people that aren't citizens due process.
So you would still agree with the Laken
because
Riley Act?
Brittany Griner didn't get due process, did she?
Obvious.
Brittany Griner didn't get due process, did she?
We'll talk about Brittany Griner in a moment. Answer my question. This means that you would agree with the Laken Riley Act, even if what I said about it was correct.
I will agree or disagree after I've read the act. That's my answer.
Sir.
Let me read the act, and then we can revisit this another time. I'm not going to give you an answer on something that I'm not 100% sure of.
I said, if I'm right.
I don't play the if and then. I want to read the act, and then I can give you a definitive.
You don't play critical thought?
No, that is a critical thought, but you're trying to catch me in a part where you can say, "Oh, he said this." No, I'm not going to play the game. Let me read the act, and I promise you, I will give you a definitive.
But I just want to say, like, this isn't like a gotcha moment. Like, I feel
you were looking for a gotcha.
The reason,
come on now,
a reason why if then questions, as it would apply to like political discourse, aren't a gotcha moment. Is because it's just simply like demonstrating like something that hopefully logically follow. Like, for instance, if you asked me if Kamala Harris was a worse presidential candidate than Donald Trump, would I have voted for Kamala Harris? My answer is no. Okay, it's not like that was a gotcha or anything.
Wait a minute.
Right?
You don't remember our last conversation? Wait a minute. I'm not trying to pivot. You don't remember our last conversation based off of exactly what you just said. I asked you and Parker if Donald Trump had the cure for cancer, would you vote for him? You both said no. I have it recorded, so don't try to back out of it.
So, out of curiosity, can you play that for me?
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna have to look back through the Telegram to grab it. But yes, because this was the same live that you brought up Athena to talk about black issues, which I thought was funny. But because y'all thought y'all had a gotcha on me because I said I wouldn't lie for Anne Frank, and then I asked you the question about the cancer thing, and you guys both said no, you wouldn't vote for Donald Trump if he had the cure for cancer.
Here's my thoughts. If Kamala Harris was running against Donald Trump and Donald Trump had the cure to cancer and everything else was held consistent, at that point, I'd probably pack my bags and move to Europe.
Oh my gosh.
I would.
Come on.
I would, man.
But the cure for cancer would help the entirety of the world.
So
not just the United States.
So are you just positing like if there was like some cure to cancer or something comparable that would generate significantly more good than harm, would I then support Donald Trump?
Yeah, that's what the question was when I posed it last time, and you both said no.
Well, I think I will say, like, at the end of the day, that you should vote for the candidate that is the lesser of two evils, and that is just the unfortunate reality inside of a two-party system where at the end of the day, one candidate wins. And you're basically asking me if Donald Trump was the lesser of two evils, would I vote for him? I think, like, my response there should be, like, a rational actor would, but I'd have a really hard time. But I could say that.
It's for the greater good.
I would say that a rational actor in the circumstance will always vote for the lesser of two evils in a two-party system if necessarily one of those two candidates need to win. I just have a hard time because of all of the bad things he's done. And actually,
so I'll say it like this: I will answer your question. Let me answer your question, Laken Riley question. Since you answered mine, as a rational person, I would have a hard time just throwing someone in a jail if we don't truly know what they've done. But I'm going to say I probably would agree with the act without reading it. After I read it and I see it and I can digest it. If I disagree with it, I'll come back to you and say, yes, I disagree. You were right.
Okay.
But as a rational person, I would be hard pressed not to agree with it right now. I'll give you the same answer you just gave me.
What? Okay. I want you to re-explain. Why do you agree with it?
Because again, I don't want people here that haven't done it the right way, because we can say, and you want to make it moral. I'll make it moral for you. You have people here because you led at the beginning that there is an arduous task of becoming a citizen.
I think
no. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's a very difficult task to become a citizen here. It's a long, grueling process.
Dude.
People that have been going through the process for a long time were being overstepped by people that did not go through the process. They were skipping the line and getting what these people have been pining for, working for, paying for to get here. Do you think that's moral? Skip the people in line that were doing what was right?
Thank you so much.
For those that don't?
Thank you so much for the question. So here's my response. I do think that legal migrants are getting slapped in the face in this situation. I just don't think they're getting slapped in the face by the undocumented migrants. I think they're getting slapped in the face by the American government, and I don't think that you could contest with that. I think that an American value that's been described by the Republican Party and the GOP since the beginning of time is that we need to make life easier for our children than for us. And I think that this is a perfect idea, a perfect way to apply that value and say that we should have brand new, innovative, cutting edge pathways to residency and citizenship for individuals that don't have prior violent offenses. And we should offer that to every single undocumented migrant in America and every single migrant that is trying to enter into our country legally. I feel as if that is the most fair solution, not only for the migrants, but also for the best outcomes for the American country, everybody in it, and society as a whole, including the migrants. And like, hopefully you'll understand where I'm coming from in the application of the principle that I just described. Because if I was to say, well, it'd be really unfair to the generations of legal migrants that had to wait 9 years, that nowadays everybody's getting in a matter of months, even if they used a legal means of entry. This is like saying that freshly 18, 19, 20-year-old women in 1920 shouldn't have gotten the right to vote because there's 85-year-old women alive at that point that hadn't had that right all their life, and that's very unfair to them.
Okay, so I can agree with that if and only if you're based off of your answer to this question. Would you agree with shutting the border down in any entry, legal or otherwise, for 2 to 5 years, and forcing our federal government, the people that are servants and trustees, forcing them to create a better system?
No,
that is more streamlined.
The answer to your question.
Huh?
The answer to your question is no.
Why?
Why? Good, great point. Because I don't think that we
What
should be
what
able
point?
to. I don't. I like you made a. That's a great question. And
You didn't let me finish the question.
do you have more to say on the question?
Yes.
Take it
Shut
away.
down the system in its entirety
Mhm.
and force our federal government to make a system where it is both streamlined for undocumented and those that are already doing the proper process. And then after this process is done, open the doors and watch the process work. Your undocumented get the things that you say you want them to have. The people that are already in the process, it make it, instead of a 10-year process, make it like a 6-month to year process for them. And then for your undocumented, they go through a process kind of like how Canada has, where they have to have a sponsor, and they have to not 3 years be perfect little angels. In that 3 years, they cannot break any laws or do anything wrong. And if they can do that, then they're granted their full citizenship within that process. But you have to shut it down for 2 to 5 years to figure out all the bugs and the kinks.
Okay. So no, I want to support that. The reason why I want to
Yikes.
support that is because I mean, like the first thing that comes to mind is a pragmatic concern. How many individuals are going to be backlogged at legal means of entry into America after that 5 years? And if I'm right in my theory that slow legal means of entry into America is what causes undocumented entry, it seems like in those 5 years, there will be a shit ton of undocumented migrants coming into America.
Possibly.
And then on top of those pragmatic concerns, I'd always hold to the principle that I don't think it's okay to do something super drastic to try to push drastic. Thank you. To try to push those in positions of power to do what you want. Like this is like me disagreeing with.
This is an ongoing problem for a long time, Dean. We both agree on that.
One moment. This is like me debating a leftist that said they voted for Donald Trump because the Democratic Party wasn't doing exactly what they want. But at the end of the day, no, I want to agree with that because of the pragmatic concerns that I gave. On top of the fact that I think that we could do both at once, I think that we should just be pushing our government right now, both the Democrats and Republicans, to place a significantly larger level of importance on making the legal means of entry into America quicker, while also pushing for further left ideals such as mass amnesty. I seriously don't see one reason why mass deportation is better than mass amnesty for individuals that didn't commit violent crimes. Whether it's economically speaking, whether we're speaking about ethics, humanitarian concerns, or just productive outcomes for the manufacturing sector and labor forces in America, I seriously think that makes mass deportation an American dead last type of ideal because of the lack of reason it's better than mass amnesty. But maybe you could fill me in here. Give me one reason that mass deportation is better for America than mass amnesty.
Well, mass deportation works really well if you have the door shut. It does not work if you are deporting people and leaving the door open. It's like shooing mosquitoes out of your house, but leaving the door open so they can come back in. This is why I advocate for shutting it all down. I am.
No, because I asked you specifically for one reason why
I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it.
Okay.
The mass deportation only works and is good. Hear what I'm saying? It's good when the door is shut.
Or you're just finding some way to prevent further undocumented entry. I agree. That's why I'd say that we should offer this this expedited path, not only to undocumented migrants, but also to all of the new, all the legal.
But how can you do that with it still happening?
Because you're offering the new expedited pathway to residency or citizenship to everybody, which would naturally disincentivize undocumented entry on its own. I think that we should have as many legal ports of entry into America as possible, only screening individuals for private.
That's going to increase the backlog. So if you give an expedited process to come into this country the right way, the way that you're espousing, more people are going to come.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I mean, that seems
so that's going to increase the backlog.
The backlog wouldn't be increased if it was handled more efficiently.
How would you handle it efficiently, Dean?
Yeah, as I just described, we place a significantly stronger precedent on the legal means of entry into America. We have literally as many legal ports of entry into America as possible, and we're funding this shit billions and billions and billions of dollars to hire so many judges, and maybe even start a whole new branch of government just to oversee the expedited pathway to entry and make sure that it's running efficiently. Anybody that wants to become a resident or citizen should be able to, as long as they haven't committed prior violent offenses. And I will say, there was one thing that you had just said that actually might be a good idea. You were like thinking of some way to say, well, they get to come into our country and then they get like a form of like temporary residency for like a year. And as long as they don't do anything drastic, they then get full citizenship. I might even be okay with that, you know? Let anybody come in, give them temporary residency for a year under this new expedited pathway to entry. And as long as they don't commit like a certain set of crimes or something like that, then they're given full citizenship. I like that.
Any crime.
But I do just want to reiterate my question that you never answered, that I want an answer to.
I did.
No, you didn't. Name one reason why your plan is better than mine. Why is mass deportation and shutting the border down better than offering undocumented migrants a pathway to residency and citizenship, as well as all the legal migrants at the border? Name one one better outcome that produces. It's worse for the
better
economy,
outcome. The
worse
better
for
outcome
GDP growth.
is the better outcome is less stress on the people in America. For example, since you need an example,
Oh my God, you suck.
Arizona.
Dude, this
Arizona,
is like literally like saying that deporting all black people in America in the 1940s would be better because it placed less stress on white Americans.
Wait a minute. These people were citizens. They weren't undocumented. That you get it's a false equivalency.
All that I'm getting at here is all the stress that would be experienced.
That's an emotional argumentation.
No. Because all that I'm getting at here is the stress that would be placed on the shoulders of Americans via offering undocumented migrants a pathway to residency or citizenship. Wouldn't it be financial stress? They're good for the economy. Wouldn't it be like stress and taxation? They'd reduce the per capita intake from each citizen as the overall pool from individuals that are paying taxes is higher. It wouldn't reduce the stress of recession and be better for GDP growth. It wouldn't reduce fucking any stress outside of the stress of mass amnesty bad because immigrants evil. The only
that's not it. Even if they weren't committing crimes,
So what stress would it reduce to deport them compared to mass amnesty?
Okay, so for perfect example, 3 hospitals shut down in the state of Arizona due to the influx of people treating the ER as if it were just a rotating revolving door. So those 3 hospitals shut down because they could not handle the excess people that were coming in there for healthcare. And it's because these people had an uneducated idea of healthcare being just, oh, let's just go in here, the ER will get taken care of when we can leave. And those 3 hospitals shut down. That is one major stress. And then that puts a strain on the people that are already citizens here because they would go to the ER for real reasons.
Check this out.
And not be able to get help.
Check this out. I'm willing to say that as it is now, undocumented migrants are more likely to quote unquote abuse emergency services at hospitals compared to citizens. Now ask me why.
I don't need to know why.
Well, I think it's important.
Sure, go humor me.
The reason why I'd say that is because undocumented migrants can't access Medicaid, Medicare, and only have access to some forms of healthcare in states like Illinois or California.
All states.
Given that
all states.
No, that's not true. It has to be special programs. No, false.
I got you. No, I got you.
False. Only special like state-driven programs such as Medi-Cal in California provide healthcare to undocumented migrants that fall below a certain like income threshold. But anyways, like overwhelmingly, I'd say this because, and on top of their lack of access to healthcare, they also can't go to a bank and get a fucking loan to pay for it out of pocket. The reason why I think that undocumented migrants are more likely to abuse emergency services at hospitals is because they have less systems of support insofar as achieving access to healthcare compared to citizens. So if you give undocumented migrants a pathway to residency or citizenship, I think that issue would naturally dissipate. Why do I say this? Because we don't see those systems being abused by legal migrants. You tried to posit somewhere in your explanation there that the reason they abuse it is because they don't understand how healthcare works in America because they're not from America. Well, legal migrants weren't born in America either, and it is the case that we don't see any increased rates of abusal of emergency services, meaning that the reason that issue might exist is because of their status of being undocumented. Fix that through mass amnesty. Yet another reason why my idea is better than yours.
No, so mass amnesty doesn't give these people funds to be able to afford insurances. So you would need another system in place to make sure these people wouldn't continue to abuse the ER through EMTALA, which is a system in which you can't be denied for emergency care. So these people, give them this fast track to amnesty, give them this fast track to citizenship. It doesn't matter. You're not going to put more money in their pockets. They're not going to be able to afford insurance. They're going to continue to abuse the system.
Do legal
Therefore,
migrants
putting more
abuse the system?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so should we get rid of legal migration as well?
No, what did you say? Illegal or legal?
Legal.
Abuse the ER system?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we should get rid of legal migration as well. We should get rid of
even American citizens abuse the ER system.
Oh my God! So we should get rid of American citizens too, then?
But
right?
no. That you're adding more to the problem. This is why your fast track doesn't work.
No,
because the medical system's going to be shot.
Sir, with all due respect, you're saying that these individuals do not deserve citizenship or residency because they have abused the ER and healthcare systems across our country. Well, of abusal of an ER is good reason to revoke the potentiality of citizenship or residency. You better be taking that away from the legal immigrants as well as citizens. But if your argument is rather that our public services will be shocked by a lot of people within a particular time, well, then does this mean that you think that we should severely cut and limit legal migration, and your ideal version of migration is not any faster than it is today?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Wait, why? Because when that shock to healthcare systems?
Yeah, no, because you're
advocating for a shock to the healthcare systems.
So whenever I have an electrical issue in my house, I turn the power off to my house. Whenever I have a water issue to my house, I turn off the water to my house. I don't keep it running and then start trying to fix the problem, because the problem is still persisting and it's making it more difficult to fix it. Now, while I might still be...
Wait. Would you leave your water running if that was something that really helped your quality of life?
No.
So if you had a broken pipe, you'd shut the water off and fucking die of thirst?
The water is, if you shut the water off, it allows you to remedy the issue. That's all I was saying when I presented the first argumentation to you, is shut it down for 2 to 5 years.
Oh yeah, well, the reason that you shut the water pipe off to remedy the issue is because you necessarily have to shut the water pipe off in order to figure out what's wrong and how to fix it. I don't think that we need to stop all immigration into America to acknowledge and understand what the issue with the current processes are. In fact, I was able to tell you exactly what the issues with the current processes are of migration without shutting them off, as well as I'm sure that any other informed American could do the same as me. So that's
how do you fix that while it's still happening? How do you fix that while it's still happening?
By expediting the processes that already exist, including for those that are currently undergoing them.
How do you fix that while that's still happening? Because you're completely forgetting about the part that once you
processes, even for those that are already undergoing them.
Fantastic. But expediting the process is only going to be a all call to more people to come. Oh, it's faster now, so now let's go. How do you stop the excess that's going to come after these people realize that the process is faster? So you're going to have more input than you do output.
Of course, you account for that in expediting the processes. And I don't think that having borders that are allowing as many individuals that want to come into our country as possible outside of individuals with prior violent offenses is going to be a huge bar to entry and just completely destroy our country and the processes that allow.
I'm not talking about that. No. I'm not even talking about.
Think about it.
I'm not talking about destroying our country. How do you handle it?
Allow me to speak. Well, I know that the EU handled it. Think about it before the EU formed. Those were different. Allow me to finish.
They're overrun.
If you'd allow me to finish, at one point, all the countries inside of the EU were their own separate, distinct entities, where it is the case that they had to undergo similar processes to travel from Germany to France, okay? Then the EU forms, and then all of a sudden, a passport in Germany is valid in any other European country, and you could travel freely across the lines from Germany to France, okay? I think that we've set a historical precedent that such a system would be possible. In fact, the burden is on you to demonstrate that if we were to introduce expedited pathways of entry into America, allowing for anybody that lacks a prior violent offense entry, that is impossible. And I think it's funny that you're making this argument because it's the Republicans that say that America owns the finish line. It's the Republicans that say that America is the best country in the world. It's the Republicans say that America is capable of doing anything that we want as long as it falls inside of American virtues. It is the Republicans that point out we have the largest, most booming economy in the world, funneling $29 trillion per year, expending trillions as well. Are you telling me that a localized federal entity of our government that handles trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars per year cannot think or conceive of a solution to offer a pathway of expedited entry into our country for anybody that lacks a prior violent offense?
No, they can't. The Pentagon has failed their last 7 audits. They've lost trillions of dollars. Don't know where it went.
Would
so
the Pentagon
I'm not going to
be overseeing immigration.
No, I'm giving you an example. I'm giving you an example. Wait. I'm giving you an example. If the government, one of the largest entities in our country, which is the Pentagon, where your Department of Homeland Security and all those other people are, your military is, can't handle the finances, and they keep losing money.
Slow. I agree. I will. Yeah. I have an interesting question.
Wait, before you ask that question, can you tell me what the current state, and please hold on to that, because you brought up the EU. Can you tell me the current state of the EU with their migratory problems they're having?
So I'm actually not too educated on like
it's bad
on what's been going on in European countries.
It's
like
bad
in history insofar as immigration. What I do know is that a lot of people on the right like to say that it's so bad, but this is a red herring to the position that I gave you, because I'm not referencing like modern immigration law as it refers to immigration from countries outside of the EU to inside.
But
of the
you
EU.
said that you were doing a good thing.
Well,
right?
You're red herring my position, because I'm not referring to immigration from countries outside of the EU to inside of the EU. I'm referring to immigration between countries inside of the EU. Before the EU was formed, each country had their own border provisions where they handled and managed the inner exchange of individuals, say from a country like France to a country like Germany. But when the EU formed, all of a sudden, a passport from the UK, Spain, or France was valid inside of any of those other countries, and we didn't see any drastic negative empirical outcome. And what you're arguing right now is there's currently bad immigration law that exists in the EU as a whole, handling individuals outside of the EU, inside of the EU. But I want to ask you a question, because right now,
okay, go for
you
it.
could agree that we're having a discussion about the pragmatics, about is it possible to implement the view I'm describing without super negative empirical outcomes, such as a destruction of the processes of immigration and even longer queues since more people will want to come in? Here's my question. If I'm right, hypothetically, and there was a way to implement as many legal means of entry into America as possible, to serve to as many individuals that wanted to come in as possible, simply screening them for prior violent offenses, and then we offer that same thing to the undocumented migrants already in our country that have not committed prior violent offenses, and you knew it would work, you knew it would reduce the time it takes for anybody to migrate into America, would you support it?
No.
So then why the fuck have we been debating your silly speculative pragmatic concerns?
Because yours is speculative too. They haven't done what you've done.
Tell me why, ideologically speaking, that mass deportation is a better idea, okay, than mass amnesty. Because as far as I'm concerned, what I just described would place America first, grow our economy, increase the size of our labor force, scale our GDP like we've never seen before, and aid and abet in higher qualities of life for everybody in our country, not only for the reasons I just described, but also because our government would have a lot more money brought in through taxation to spend on social safety nets for those that are struggling, to expedite economic mobility, to make everybody a little bit richer than they are now. Why the fuck
nobody
would
get richer? No. Taxation doesn't make people richer, and then you bring up your
wait, you think
example of the EU, and
wait, stop. You just said that better social safety nets don't increase economic mobility?
No, they don't.
So then why is there higher levels of economic mobility in Nordic countries with more social safety nets than we have in America?
Because they have a state's worth of people in them for the entirety of their whole country. They also have the largest military in the world protecting them, and going to bat for them because they're not using their money for military. They're using their money for other things.
Wait, their expenditure on the military has nothing to do with my question. My statement was that there's higher levels of economic mobility in countries with better social safety nets, and we see that as a positive correlation. The more social safety nets you have, the less barrier to entries individuals having to get in an education, going to work, getting a high-paying job. So there's more economic mobility that's present. Your counter argument is that, well, it is a case that they have a state's amount of people in their country, and maybe that's why it's more efficient. So I do just want to clarify if there was better,
I'll clarify.
If there was better social safety nets in just one state, such as one moment, such as Colorado, would that lead to a higher level of economic mobility inside of Colorado?
Potentially, not necessarily. Potentially, because that's the argument for states' rights, which I'm for state rights. But if you're looking for the whole of the United States of America, it will not work. One, we have too many people. Two, we have too many inconsistencies with our government handling and mismanaging finances. Three, we put too much money and too much stock into our military, which I can't agree with that. But
I'm just suggesting a fact. That
on a state base, yes, I agree with you on a state base. Yes, on a state base.
Wait, so if all 50 states implemented more social safety nets, there would be a higher level of economic mobility on the scale?
Their own personalized to their own states safety nets that the federal government has no federal government involved.
If all 50 states did that, would we have higher levels of economic mobility in America?
Before I answer that, no federal government involvement.
I just asking if all 50 states, no federal government involvement, implemented their own social safety nets.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. Yes.
Great. So, dude,
because you were advocating for the federal government. Wait. You were advocating for the federal government to do it.
I just suggested a principle that more social safety nets lead to a higher level of economic mobility. And now after
what's the only way? But you were espousing that the federal government implement that. If the state governments did it, I'm for it.
No. I never said if the federal government implements social safety nets, it leads to a higher level of economic mobility. I actually agree with you here. I think that if policy was designed to be more interpersonal to individual constituents, that it could probably produce better and more productive outcomes. I'd say if individuals in California have different needs than individuals in Alabama insofar as the reasons why individuals in poverty are in poverty and how to get them out of poverty, that we should implement more specialized policy to provide to their specific needs. Obviously, when you implement policy on a more macro scale, it's going to lead to more productive outcomes, and that's why I personally advocate for federal entities that oversee and standardize practices in all 50 states, so you could still allow for an interpersonal micro level involvement.
I disagree.
But it's just overseen with very basic rules.
No, that's why I specifically asked you, and the reason why
you really like states' rights.
The reason why I presumed that you were talking about federal is because you mentioned a whole other country by comparison to their social safety nets being implemented here, why they have better social safety nets. One, the countries that you're talking about have 5-6 million people in them. We have states that are 10 times that. So when we not 10 times, like 4 times realistically, but because I don't want someone to say, oh, he said we got 10 times, whatever. But what I'm saying is the moment you allow the federal government any oversight at any given time, it no longer becomes a state thing, because as soon as the federal government says that we think that you are doing something wrong, they take jurisdiction and they take over. So yes, I think it would work better, but then you still have the issue with the people that would leech off of the system like we have now from things like where people get food stamps. People leech off of those systems now that they don't need these things. They purposely don't go get jobs, and they hurt the system.
Do you think that we should get rid of food stamps?
No, I don't. I think we should make it more difficult for people to stay on food stamps.
I'm just confused on your view here, because I suggested a premise that social safety nets are good and they should
with the federal government's help.
Just allow me to finish. And now you're trying to give me like a counter argument against that. But then you bring up food stamps, and then even you still think that we should have food stamps be present on a federal level. So you're not giving.
No, I don't. No, because you're not letting me finish. No, I think the federal government should be removed from any social safety net. Because when the federal government becomes involved, it becomes too big to manage, and then people will then turn around and abuse the system. Where if it's strictly state ran and they set in metrics that say, hey, you can only stay on this for 3 years. You have to show us that you've been looking for a job, a way to better yourself, because these social safety nets are helping you not to have so much of a cost. You should be able to spend more time and efforts bettering yourself.
Listen, so here's the deal. I think I even disagree with you there. So like,
why?
What? So there's going to be like a certain portion of individuals that are like reliant on social safety nets that like probably intend to continue to be reliant on their social safety nets for as long as they can. I think that this portion of individuals is small.
That's bad.
Now, just if you'd allow me to finish. And here's where we disagree, is that the social safety net overall leads to positive outcomes, demonstrates a return on an investment by increasing economic mobility. Therefore, I find no reason why this system that generates a positive ROI shouldn't provide those social safety nets, even for those that are still reliant on them, just because they want to be reliant on them.
What's your definition of reliance?
And I rather think that a better approach wouldn't to be to revoke food stamps from individuals that never intend to get off them, but to rather advocate for social reform that leads to an environment that increases one's propensity to get an education and involved in the workforce. And I'd say one of the first steps to get us there is to make college free in America. Is to have federal laws to provide every toddler in our country free schooling from preschool to high school.
We already have free schooling.
I think that the most recent update that we've seen was from Biden when he like implemented free kindergarten.
No, the kindergarten's always been free.
I'm talking about even before kindergarten, pre-K and preschool.
Okay, pre-K preschool, that's more of a daycare system. But no, let's go back to what you're
basically state-funded daycare.
Let's go back to your system, your thought process on, you don't think people that have no intentions of leaving a system that's fully capable of leaving that system, that has all the necessary means.
I don't think they should, because the system as a whole still generates a positive ROI.
No, it doesn't.
Activating for other forms of social return.
No, how is the return on investment positive if these people are continuously taking but not putting back in?
Wait, you're only referring to a small portion of individuals on the system. Can we agree that there's individuals in America that don't pay taxes but still use public services such as our roads?
Yes, most of those people are elderly.
Okay. Well, then how the fuck can we have a system of taxation that generates our government money when some people in that system are just
them driving on the roads doesn't cost me money? Them driving on the road doesn't cost me money.
But it's more the fact that there's a system that exists of taxation that leads to the outcomes such as roads, government buildings, free schooling, kindergarten through high school, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm simply saying, assuming your logic, because there's some people that benefit from taxation that don't pay any taxes themselves, that must mean that taxes doesn't generate our government any positive return. Because that's the equivocation that you're making for social safety.
I don't need, no, I'm not.
You're saying because there's a small portion of individuals that are reliant on social safety nets that never intend to not be reliant and will just continue to benefit from the system, that therefore the entirety of all social safety nets do not generate a positive outcome. That's false. I think that social safety nets do. I think on average they lead to a higher level of economic mobility and lead to a more cohesive environment that allows individuals to have less barriers to entry into the labor force in a highly specialized degrees. So I don't think that we should just simply boot people off those social safety nets, but I am okay with meeting in the middle of the road by saying that we should advocate for more social reform so individuals are less likely to have incentive to do that in the first place.
But that's the problem, though. Regardless of whether you incentivize people to do something or not, you're always going to have that small segment of people that take advantage of the system. So what I'm espousing to you is,
just like you're always gonna have a section of Americans that don't pay taxes, but you still agree with taxation.
So no, I don't agree with taxation. But that's a whole nother argument.
Sorry,
but
you still agree with public services that are paid for by taxation being available to individuals that don't pay taxes.
Cool. I'm not worried about that.
Should homeless people be able to call the police? Should homeless people be able to call the fire department?
Yes.
Oh wow, they're grifting off the social
wait. You have volunteer EMS and fire departments. that don't get paid by taxpayers.
What about a state funded? What about a EMS or a fire department that is paid by the taxpayers? Should homeless individuals be able to call in?
That's a different argument. Let me finish my argumentation.
Please just answer my question.
I just said that's a different argument.
Never intends on getting a job at any
yes,
point
they
ever
should still be able to call them. They should still be able to call them. You're talking to a prior. You're talking to a prior paramedic.
I have picked up people.
I have picked up people that did not pay. They got a free ride to the hospital. They got free Narcan. They got free care the whole way there. Didn't pay a dime. That sucks. But what I am saying is these people are dealing with an issue. I'm talking about the people that are fully capable of doing and taking care of themselves, fully capable of getting a job, fully capable of bettering themselves. You're okay with them just maintaining on the system.
Answer my question. So there's an individual in poverty that's fully capable of getting a job, fully capable of going out there and bettering themselves, and all of these additional things, which, by the way, I'm just accepting for the intents and purposes of the argument that I'm trying to convey here. Should they be able to call a fire department that is paid for by the taxpayers?
But those people...
Let's just listen. Even though they themselves are not a taxpayer, and they're fully capable of doing so. In one word, yes or no, should they be able to do that?
Yes, but that's a false equivalency.
Why?
You've been saying false equivalency. That's a false equivalency. I'm
going to demonstrate because that's not a false equivalency when you answer my question. Why?
I'm going to answer it. So it's a false equivalency because what we're arguing is people that are using a service that they are capable of not needing and allowing them to maintain on that service, whereas like public safety and stuff like that, those services should be given to everybody because those individuals can cause more of an issue later on, those non-taxpayer. So allowing them to have that is an okay thing. Whereas if I'm fully capable or you're fully capable of
what do you mean by that?
Bettering myself.
That was gibberish. What did you just say?
No, it's not. So for example,
I'm going to answer it. I just want to reiterate what you just said.
I know what you're saying.
So we should let like a mother, a mother in poverty call the police department to put out a fire caused by her stove because she's capable of generating more of an issue later on. What does that sentence even mean? That was pure gibberish.
Because if you, that's why I said I already understand where you're going. So if you don't allow that person to have access to cops or EMS or fire department, that one house that's on fire now will catch other taxpayers' homes on fire.
What if it doesn't?
There's a potentiality of it.
What if there's no potentiality?
Because
No. Okay. What if there's not? What if she lives on an acre of land with nobody around? It's not, dude. There's so many Americans that live in
She's on an acre of land.
America,
she catches the land on fire. The land now
don't pay taxes. Are you kidding me?
Now the land hurts the animals, and the animals run out on the highway, and someone gets in a car accident because of it.
No. Let's assume that there's a car on fire on a slab of pavement that makes up her driveway that will not catch or will not start any larger forest fires. Will not catch the brush on fire, and we know with certainty that will not impact taxpayers. Should she be able to call
Yes, because of the potential. Yes, because of the potential.
If there wasn't a potential, then should she be able to call the
No.
firefighters?
There's always going to be a potential. That's why they respond to every call.
Okay. If there's not, should she be able to call?
Matter of fact, I got you. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to tell you why. Because there are places. It has
nothing to do with the potential.
Yeah, no. I got you. You know, there are black zones in places where cops won't go, EMS won't go, and fire departments won't go in certain cities because of the danger, because of the greater danger it would pose to those people that are going to help. They will not go. Kinston, North Carolina happens to have one of those areas where it's like 22 acres of land in an area of a neighborhood where they will not go. Emergency responders will not go regardless of the call because of the potential of harm coming to them is greater than helping the people that need that. Those people are taxpayers.
Would you agree that's an issue?
Yes. But that goes back to my argumentation where I think it's.
How that aids and abets in your argument.
I think it's okay for people to be on.
About learning more. Could you show me where one of these places is?
Yeah, Kinston, North Carolina.
Okay, what do I look on? I'm not trying to disprove you. I'm just.
I got
curious. What's the name of the place?
Hold on 1 second. I'll pull it up for you, and I'm going to respond while I'm pulling this up for you. So I'm not saying that these people shouldn't have access to these systems. I'm saying that these people should not be able to remain on these systems if they are capable of getting off of the systems.
Okay, yeah, and I feel like I've already kind of given you my reasons why I disagree. I will go through them like once again just to be brief. So the reasons why I disagree with you is because A, the system generates a positive ROI as it exists, is a total net benefit for our country as well as the people in it, even if we evaluate the issue through an economic lens. The reason why I say that is very simple. Social safety nets lead to a higher level of economic stability. It makes it easier for individuals to overcome barriers of entry into the labor force, to get a degree, or to have a highly specialized like education, to go into a highly specialized workforce. I do understand that these social safety nets, come with what you're describing, a small proportion of the individuals in which it would help, that do not use that as an accelerant to put themselves ahead, to go into the labor force, etc., but rather benefit from it with no intention to ever stop benefiting from it. I do believe that our government has an obligation to continue to provide those benefits to those individuals. The main reason why I say this is because A, it's a very small expense out of the overall amount of money that they spend. This is like saying, would you spend 0.00001% of your annual income to save the lives of 3 million? I'd say yes. In fact, I'd even argue if you didn't, that you'd be doing something morally wrong, okay? And an obligation would exist there. And then on top of that, there's other things, tools, and systems that we could use to reduce the amount of people that benefit from social safety nets with no intention to use that as an accelerant in our economy, such as social provisions. And I feel as if those ideas should be explored first. And for those reasons, I do disagree with you. And you are still looking for like these areas where I guess EMS won't go.
So you go to ncdps.gov, know your owns,
I'm just
and then
curious,
you
I just
have
wanna know. Like,
yeah.
where is it?
So South Queen District, South Queen Street District in Kinston, North Carolina. EMS will not respond there. Fire department will not respond there.
Dude, that's crazy.
And police. Yes, well, they won't respond there because you pulling up in there is going to almost 100%, almost, I would say 92.5% to be more realistic, 92.5% chance of you getting shot by going there. It's a very dangerous area. There's a place like that in Charlotte. There's a place like that in Durham. There's a place like that in Greenville.
I mean,
There's a place.
I've never heard.
They're called
about
no-go
any of this.
zones.
I've
They're called no-go zones.
I never heard any of this. I mean, I don't understand how it's relevant to the debate. I kind of do remember the original prompt that I still don't think that you've.
Yeah, your
you've
original
responded
question
yet.
is
So
why your
so
idea is
no,
better
no.
than mine.
Yeah, so my original question related to immigration, not even social safety net. So I don't even know how we got here.
Yeah,
The-
so
the
so
original-
going
the
back to your original
question was-
argumentation,
listen,
my-
listen, just allow me to speak.
I don't need you to reiterate. I already know what you said. I have a great memory.
I'd love to reiterate it for those listening.
Okay, go for it.
Thank you. So my original question is why, or can you name one way in which mass deportation produces better outcomes than mass amnesty, insofar as offering undocumented migrants that have not committed violent crimes a pathway to residency or citizenship? I'm under the impression that mass amnesty only really comes with good outcomes. I mean, it increases the amount of money that our government has to use to spend on the citizens as well as the new citizens. It expedites GDP growth. It aids and abets an increase in the size of the American labor force to reindustrialize.
What are you comparing that to?
I'm comparing that to mass deportation, and I'm comparing
No.
that to
Okay,
undocumented
where are
migrants
you
as
getting
exist
that
in
data
America
from?
today.
Where are you getting that data from?
Feel free to ask me the claim, and I'll give you the data. Well, for
No.
instance, like,
I'm
okay,
saying based off of your answer, where are you pulling that data that it does provide more of this?
Yeah, sure. I made like 4 separate claims there, so we could go through the data for each to support each. Sorry. For instance, my first claim that they made was that they'd be paying more in taxes. I mean, I think you actually gave me a source that reiterated the same fact that I have. Last year, they paid $95.7 billion in taxes on the federal, state, and local level. That's coming from House Republicans as well as their government website. But you agreed to that one, so obviously, you wouldn't contest that.
Yeah, I also said that we pay more in taxes too
and I
as American citizens.
And I disputed that.
Yeah. Okay. What's your next one?
Wait, actually, I let you pivot away from that one too. Holy shit.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Because you said I pulled it from some PDF and I didn't.
No.
I actually looked at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics.
The way that I disputed that was because what's being factored into that total number of $152 billion being expensed for undocumented migrants in America, a vast majority of that would come for expenses for their children that are natural U.S.-born citizens and the expenses for education for them. That doesn't just go to undocumented migrants. When we're talking about government systems that just
their spawns not citizens.
In accordance with the Constitution, it is, and in accordance with the law, it is.
No, it's not.
What did you say? Spawn?
Yes, I did.
You're talking about these people as if they're not even human. You sick You
Yeah,
sicko?
I have 3 spawn outside the door right now. Of my
Spawn is
own.
just crazy. How about we call children
Well,
children?
you called them zygotes and not humans and fetuses for years. So
Okay,
let's not get on.
why are you
Not
lying
let's
about what
not
I
get on my
think?
vernacular.
I've never argued that a fetus inside of a woman's uterus is not a human. In fact, I had a debate with Parker 2
Is it a
days
child?
ago about
Is
the
it a
fact,
child?
about the fact that I think that a fetus is a human. So
Is it a
when
child?
when you superimpose, let me finish. When you superimpose a view on me saying that I think that zygotes aren't human, why are you lying on my name? And
No,
then
because I've
second,
heard you in other debates. That's why.
you
This is
haven't.
not a one-time issue.
You've absolutely.
I didn't hear your
you've
debate with
absolutely-
Parker where
you've never heard me call a fetus not a human.
I asked, is it a child?
Is it a child? If a child's just being defined as like is like the quote unquote spawn, as you said, of a person, yeah, it is. It's. I don't.
Okay,
care if you
cool.
call it a child.
We can move then. We can move on then.
Like my
Cool.
my position on abortion is very simple. I just think that like this child, this baby, this zygote, this fetus, whatever you want to call it, I don't care what descriptor you use, does not have moral value. But yet again, another pivot.
Yeah.
So once again, going.
No,
back
I wasn't
to the
pivoting.
original
Can you
claim.
go back to what you were saying?
Yes,
So I can
yes.
respond, please.
Yes, I can. So our government does not expense $152 billion per year in benefits for undocumented migrants.
Okay.
The reason why I
so
say that is because the $152 billion figure that you're thinking of, that includes a lot of funding for education for the children of undocumented migrants that are natural U.S. born citizens. And then B.
and I disagree with that.
Why?
Because the per the language of the 14th Amendment and the intent of the authors of the 14th Amendment based off of the hearing for the ratification of the 14th Amendment, they said that it is not for someone to come over and have a child and that child be considered a citizen. For the same reason in the argumentation in this hearing, they said that if a foreign dignitary came over and had a child on American soil, it doesn't make that foreign dignitary's child an American citizen. But that would go against your logic because at the simple time, in fact, of them having a child on American soil, they would then be an American citizen. And then that would go against the emolument clause in Article 1.
So
That's why I don't agree with that.
I'd argue that if a foreign dignitary had a child on American soil, that their child would be a dual citizen, both of America as well as the country in which they're a dignitary from.
Not according to the intent by the gentleman from Missouri who created the 14th Amendment.
Okay, would you be able to just read us the 14th Amendment real quick?
Yeah. Do you know the definition of persons?
Do I know the definition of persons? Not as it would be described by our Constitution.
Okay, fantastic. I got that. I can even put up a screenshot for you from Black's Law Dictionary. Give me 1 second.
Wait,
Because I have that
wait,
on.
out of curiosity, are the children of undocumented migrants in America today considered citizens or undocumented migrants?
They're considered undocumented.
So then why is Donald Trump pushing for legislation through Congress for them to be considered undocumented if they're already considered undocumented?
Because Donald Trump doesn't know everything. He does make mistakes. He's human. Even if they're dumb mistakes by my measure.
Oh, wait, so
I think some of the shit he does is stupid.
So I just want to clarify. So you disagree with Donald Trump's push for legislation to consider the children of undocumented migrants?
Yeah, because they're already
migrants?
undocumented.
And that's just
Because they're already
government
undocumented.
expenses?
Because I'm agreeing with you because they are already undocumented.
How do you feel about the ruling? I forget which state circuit it's from.
Wong Kim Arc?
From a judge in which indicated that that's not the case, that they are not undocumented migrants, but rather
You're talking
citizens.
about Wong Kim Arc, right?
I don't know his name.
Yeah, Wong Kim Arc was a case based on the premise of the Chinese Exclusionary Act, and this was a direct result of that. And then you have the Birmingham Treaty, which says that which was an opposition to the Chinese Exclusionary Act. When you look inside of that treaty, these people were permanent legal residents based off of their kind of like a green card status. So that particular ruling only applied to Wong Kim Arc and his family because of their status based off of a treaty. And according to Article 6 of the Constitution, all treaties, laws, and the Constitution made and things made in pursuance thereof in the future would be considered the supreme law of the land. So that particular case was based off of a treaty, not his parents' actual status.
Okay, well, I mean, according to the American Immigration Council, the Supreme Court case of the United States versus Wong Kim Arc would set forth a precedent under the 14th Amendment, cementing birthright citizenship for all children of all immigrants.
So I will give you a little bit of homework.
I just want to ask a follow-up question. Why have we never had any conservative Supreme Court justices or a conservative Supreme Court set the precedent that they are not citizens.
Because it would have to come before their court, bud. Like they don't just make up precedents based off of what they feel or think. There has to be a court case.
Has there never been a case in front of the Supreme Court?
Not since Wong Kim Arc.
1898.
Not since Wong Kim Arc.
Okay. So in 1898, you had the case of Wong Kim Arc that established the precedent that it's in the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, particularly the citizenship clause, that it cemented birthright citizenship for children of all immigrants. This has gone uncontested and has been the common understanding of the law of the land that, yes, this would apply to the children of all immigrants. I mean, like, we even have like legal interpretations and scholarly opinions. I mean, like, for instance, this comes from the American Immigration Council that indicate that you're wrong and I'm right. We also have SCOTUS blog that would indicate that you're wrong and I'm right. As well as because today we see a push from Republicans in Congress to pass legislation to specifically revoke citizenship status away from the children of undocumented migrants, that yes, it is the current interpretation of circuit courts in all 50 states alongside our federal government that the children of undocumented migrants are citizens. I believe it is only in your interpretation.
It's not my interpretation. So would you agree that the intent of the author supersedes what I feel or think, or what you feel or think?
Would the intent of the author supersede what I feel or think? Yes. However, the intent of the Supreme Court as well as circuit courts would supersede your speculative understanding of the intent of the author. So also, I want to make it known that I did ask you about like federal benefits for undocumented migrants, and you are now only speculating that it benefits undocumented migrants, and I find that to be problematic. Would you be able to describe?
Can you repeat the first part? I had to take my earphone out. Can you repeat the first part before you got to the last 15 seconds?
For sure. I'm just simply asking you to delineate like social safety nets that are intended for undocumented migrants, because we just both agreed that the federal government right now does not intend funding for education for the kids of undocumented migrants born in America for undocumented migrants, as they consider them to be citizens.
No. So
they do. Even Trump does.
No. I'm not saying no to that. I'm not. That's not what I'm trying to argue for that. So I don't know where you pulled that from. That's why I asked you to repeat it to make sure I was hearing you correctly. So per the 14th Amendment, persons are of two kinds.
Wait,
natural and
I
artificial.
think if we're going to debate the Constitution, we should just get a lawyer up here. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a constitutional
Cool. That's why I was asking you to do a little bit of homework for me. So there is a constitutional attorney who's been doing this for.
I'm just going to side with the current distinction of the federal government.
Okay.
I'm going to say
that
the federal
government.
No,
but that's why, because you don't know what Wong Kim Arc says. So I'm actually trying to help you with that particular case, with someone that has studied that case, that is a constitutional attorney, that has colleagues that agree with her.
Are you a constitutional attorney?
No, I don't have to be able to read.
So you're giving the opinion of a constitutional attorney?
I can go tell you to go listen to this person.
Wait, so would you be able to say, if I was able to give you the opinion of a constitutional attorney, which would differ, that we'd just be on even footing?
Yeah. That's why I asked you earlier, do you agree that the opinion, not the opinion, but the intent of the author supersedes opinion?
So the way that I answered that is that the intent of the author would supersede the opinion of URI. However, I do believe that the precedent set by like court circuits in all 50 states, alongside the precedent set by our federal government, would supersede your speculative understanding of the intent
what other court case questioned the 14th Amendment? So besides Wong Kim Arc,
no, because Wong Kim Arc is a precedent for birthright citizenship for the children of undocumented migrants.
But it's not, because it's based off of a treaty.
No.
Have you ever read Wong?
Opinion, it's not. You're saying
no. I'm telling you the court case. I'm telling you what they said in the court case.
You're telling me in the opinion of a constitutional scholar in which you are referencing it is not. I mean, I could easily reference somebody such as Christiane Hall, or just the American Immigration Council, or the House Republicans.
I'm not arguing what their opinion is. I'm telling you what the court case said. The court case's decision was based off of a treaty, not off of the 14th Amendment. It was based off of a treaty, which is the supreme law of the land per the Article 6.
So it was based off of a treaty. What treaty?
Yes. That's why I said I would give you a little bit of homework. And you brought up
just
Chris
don't
Ann
even know what you're
Hall.
talking about. What
You brought
treaty
up
are you
Chris
talking
Ann
about?
Hall.
No,
Chris
I'm asking you, what treaty?
The Brigham Treaty.
What is the
That's what I mentioned
Treaty?
that earlier.
What is the Brigham Treaty?
Oh my gosh. It was a counter to the Chinese Exclusionary Act.
Okay, what's the Chinese Exclusionary Act?
The Chinese Exclusionary Act was when they were just taking Chinese people and throwing them in concentration camps in America and mistreating them. Huh?
And this was in the 19th century?
In the 1800s, yes.
Okay. And then there was this treaty made with whom? The American government?
The Brigham Treaty is what was used to make Wong Kim Arc a legal citizen.
Okay, so it was a treaty.
A legal, lawful citizen. Do it now?
Okay, so then what did this court case
delineate? That's why I'm asking you to go listen to Chris Ann Hall.
What did the court case delineate?
They delineated that he was a citizen because of his parents' legal status. They were legal residents of the United States, and because of the treaty that specifically pertained to what they were dealing with, because they fell under the Chinese Exclusionary Act, and then that treaty altered that.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. Also, for everybody in the comment section saying like Dean's getting cooked, Dean L. I mean, I hope that you don't like shit on me for asking questions about a treaty from the 19th century. But I guess
that's why I keep asking you to go.
I guess one moment. I guess everybody in the comment section just knows about this treaty. You guys are really educated.
That's why I'm asking you to go listen to Chris Ann Hall.
Allow me to speak.
Yeah, I'm asking you to listen to Chris Ann Hall.
Okay, I'm asking you if you allow me to speak.
Sure, Dean.
Thank you. Okay. So essentially, here's the vibes that I'm getting off of what you're describing right now. So there is some very estranged scholar who has written a piece describing her reasoning insofar as why she does not believe that birthright citizenship should be extended to the children of undocumented migrants under whatever speculative shit you just threw at me. So here's where I stand today. Because 99% of legal scholars disagree with her. Because the federal government, both Democratic and Republican and MAGA and Trump, disagree with her. Because
no, they agree with her.
Then why would they be pushing legislation to make the children of undocumented migrants when they're already undocumented migrants?
Again, like I said earlier, Trump is not God. He doesn't know everything.
So then they don't agree with her. They agree with me.
No, her push for it, because she said she's going to write in on Trump's behalf when this comes up to review by the Supreme Court over the legalization of citizenship based off the 14th Amendment. She's going to write an expert opinion.
I'm starting to get what you're telling us about this court case, because all that I've been able to read about it so far is the American Immigration Council saying that offered birthright citizenship to the children of immigrants in America, and that specific court case decision basically delineated that the children of Chinese immigrants born in the United States, they could acquire birthright citizenship, and this would apply to the children of all immigrants.
No. That is not what the case says.
Okay, so if I can,
I'm basing it strictly off of the case.
I'm just gonna give you how about like this is when I say I'm not a scholar, I'm not a lawyer, I'm definitely not a constitutional I'm not a constitutional scholar, not a constitutional lawyer. For me to act like I'm able to sit here and tell you exactly why this interpretation that you're merely reading off a computer screen to me is wrong would be dishonest of me. So this is when I appeal to the 99% of constitutional lawyers that disagree with her.
Okay. All right. So going back to the 14th, because
I just want you to agree. Would you agree that there's a significantly stronger precedent set that the children of immigrants born in America have birthright citizenship?
No.
Okay, now you're just...
Because that case doesn't say that.
Now you're just getting into outlandish. Okay.
Dean, the case doesn't say that.
The reason why I say that now you're just spewing like absolute garbage is because
the case doesn't say that.
I'm asking you about the understood precedent by government and by courts on all levels over the course of the last 225 years.
Okay, so I'm going to respond now.
No. Would you agree? No, that's not. I'm not asking you about the court case.
I don't agree.
I'm not asking you about the interpretation of the court case that you're reading.
I don't agree.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, because I want you to understand what you're disagreeing to, Lumberjack. So you are arguing that over the course of the last 227 years, there's been a stronger precedent that has been present in government, that has been present in courts across our country, present in constitutional scholars that know the children of immigrants do not have a right to citizenship if they're born in America.
America argued precedents for 400 years that black people should be slaves. So are you saying that all those court cases and doctrine and laws were correct?
What did you say? You're going to have to repeat that because I don't understand what you just said.
I got you. So you're saying over the past 200 plus years that these legal scholars were correct. So you would have to agree that the legal scholars and the lawmakers of the 400 plus years of slavery were correct.
I'm so confused. Oh, okay.
Oh, don't act. Oh, come on, don't do that to me, baby. Come on, you've been good faith the whole time. Come on, don't do that.
I am being good faith. I'm just trying to understand what you're saying. So you're saying because I think the children of immigrants have birthright citizenship, that therefore slavery is a good thing? What?
No.
Last time.
You said because these people for 200 plus years said this, the legal scholars, the lawyers, the judges, the lawmakers said this for 200 plus years, that they take precedence over someone that disagrees with them. So you would have to say for the 400 years of slavery, that all of the legal scholars, the lawyers, the lawmakers, that they were correct.
Okay, I think that we're having a confusion, and here's why. Because
I'm not confused.
The reason why we had a war in America was to criminalize slavery. The reason why the Civil War existed was because prior to our federal government stating that slavery is wrong and they passed a constitutional amendment, it was legal. So I don't understand what you're saying. Like the issue of slavery. So
you're saying that they changed precedents?
The issue of slavery prior to the Civil War wasn't that these people were doing something illegal by engaging in the slave trade. The precedent is that they're doing something immoral by engaging in the slave trade. And it's so immoral that they then had to set forth a constitutional amendment to ban it. So when you say like, oh, Dean, well, then you have to agree with the opinions of the lawyers and constitutional scholars before the Civil War that slavery was allowed. That is what the opinion of the leaders of the Union thought. Even like the Union was like, slavery is allowed in America. This is bad. We need to stop this. We're going to go to war and set forth a constitutional amendment. So yes, I would agree with the interpretation of lawyers, with the interpretation of scholars, that prior to the Civil War and an amendment to the Constitution that explicitly banned slavery outside of prisons, that slavery was legal. You're right.
So you said that. So you're saying that they were justified in doing so.
No! Why do you think I equivocate between legality and morality? I absolutely do not base my moral standard off of legality. Would you say that when child marriage was legal, that therefore they were justified in marrying kids? No, absolutely not.
Stop muting me so I can answer. No, I'm against child marriage, and I think anyone that's pro-child marriage or makes any laws, what I would say to actually save face, if I were you, is that hey, sometimes the legal system's wrong. And I'm not trying to blur the lines of morality or anything like that.
That's not what I'm saying to say faith. That's exactly what I'm arguing. You're asking me if like the interpretation of scholars and lawyers prior to the Civil War was correct, that slavery was allowed. Yes, their interpretation was correct. Slavery was allowed. Slavery was legal in America prior to the Civil War. That's very important to acknowledge and understand. And that's why they went to war and set forth a precedent of a constitutional amendment to ban slavery as the law was immoral. Because
the law was immoral. Right. So when we go to the 14th Amendment, because this is where I've been trying to get the whole time, because you're arguing that the language of the 14th Amendment gives you the go-ahead nod and the win. That's why I asked you earlier what the definition of persons was.
Lumberjack, I'll reiterate my position on the 14th Amendment one last time. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I believe that there's a precedent set forth in America and has been set forth in America since 1897 that the children of immigrants do have a justified claim to birthright citizenship. And yes, both Republicans, Democrats, and Maga and Trump agree with me. So do circuit courts, such as the circuit court that shot down Donald Trump's executive order to ban birthright citizenship, arguing that it was in violation of the 14th Amendment.
Yeah,
there is a court precedent. The court that struck down Donald Trump's
that wasn't precedence.
Order.
That was a hearing.
It was a hearing
And
that
so,
struck down the executive order, right? Was
yeah,
Donald Trump's executive order
and
shut down?
he's going to win on appeals.
Oh, but the current president prior to the appeal is that the children of immigrants do have birthright citizenship, correct?
No,
No? Okay, well then if court cases don't determine precedent, the court case that you are referencing that determined the precedent, that the children of
that's not what
undocumented
I'm saying.
migrants do not have a just claim to citizenship, is irrelevant.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yes, you're giving me a court case
No.
to instantiate that because of the wording of this court case, the children of undocumented migrants do not have a claim to citizenship. Well, I'll just give you a more recent court case. There's a more recent court case that came from a circuit court, and I forget the state, could have even been a federal court, that struck down Donald Trump's executive order, saying that the children of undocumented migrants do not have birthright citizenship, appealing to the 14th Amendment. So yes, absolutely, there's a precedent set in America today by the circuit court that shot down Donald Trump's EO, stating that they do have a claim under the 14th Amendment to birthright
That's not a court
citizenship.
case. Stop muting me. I know how to be quiet and let you speak, but stop muting me. That's weird. So that wasn't a court case, bro. That was a judge who held an emergency hearing to put a stay on the executive order. A court case is you have a defendant.
Yeah, the hearing set forth the precedent that under the current
Hearings can't set precedents, Dean.
Oh, okay. Then what do you mean by precedent then?
The precedence is set by a court case where a verdict is rendered.
Okay, so
this was not a verdict
on appeal. So you need.
Yeah,
so
I think that will be turned over on appeal.
So I think what I'm arguing is that seemingly the courts and the government agree with me that in accordance with the current interpretation of the 14th Amendment, the children of undocumented migrants have a claim to birthright citizenship.
Okay, by what part of the 14th?
By what part of the 14th? Like the first two sentences where it says, do you want to read it off to me?
That's why I've been trying to get to the whole time, bro. That's where I've been trying to get to. Because if you would agree with me that definitions matter, prescriptive and descriptive, they matter, right?
Do definitions matter? Definitions matter.
Okay, fantastic. So per the Constitution and the definition.
Can we just get a lawyer on the live?
I don't care. They're going to be wrong too. You can pull up any lawyer you want.
Yeah, I want to get a lawyer on.
Sure.
The live. Do we have like law? Do we have Rolo?
It's cool. I mean, you can find them, but
like my position doesn't like. I just want to reiterate. My position goes no deeper than 99% of lawyers, attorneys, and judges agree with me. Like that's as far as my position goes.
Pull a lawyer up, please.
I appeal to the academics and the professionals, and I feel as if that is a justified conclusion for me to reach.
Yes, but bring a lawyer up, please.
Okay, yeah.
Bring a lawyer up, and I'm going to ask them the same thing I asked you, and then we're going to read the definitions out of a legal, lawful dictionary, not out of Oxford.
I think that's smart.
Cool.
I'd love to bring up a lawyer.
Cool, fantastic.
In the meantime, guys, make sure that we're double tapping away on that phone screen, as well as I appreciate.
Yes, tap the screen.
I appreciate everyone that has donated so far today. I haven't been reading those offs. By the way, Lumberjack, I got to say that you are very good at pivoting.
No, I haven't pivoted once.
Sure you did. We were talking about why I think that mass amnesty is better than mass deportation. And then now...
And I answered that.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
So mass deportation is better because it's less strain on the American people. That's my opinion. You gave your opinion that mass amnesty would grant more of a less of a burden on the American people because it would add more taxation and all that other stuff.
I think that mass deportation puts a larger strain on the American people. The reason that I argue that is because mass deportation will lead to lower qualities of life on average, higher per capita like taxation as there's less people in the overall tax pool, slow GDP growth, less money for our government to spend on social safety nets to reduce strain, as well as a crippled labor force. And I asked
you where you pulled those metrics. And you stopped halfway because we haven't had what you're saying. We haven't had what you said. You're saying on mass, right?
Wait. Where am I pulling those metrics from? So I already gave you like the evidence.
You gave me one.
So I gave you the evidence to justify that undocumented migrants pay $100 billion per taxes on year in the federal, state, and local level. Undocumented migrants are productive providers for that reason. They put more into the government than they take out. The evidence that it would cripple our labor force to do mass deportation. I mean, on one hand, just comes from common sense. You're removing millions of people that work. The reason we know that they work is because they pay $100 billion in taxes. And then B, the business owners that have been complaining about the mass deportation insofar as how it will slow their growth in the long term. My second claim that it will reduce GDP growth was, well, if you're a productive provider, you're working a job and you're paying taxes, you're spending money inside of the economy. But to get a little bit more analytical, migrants in the next 10 years are projected to add $1.7 trillion to the American economy. And I believe that's coming from the Congressional Budget Office. And of course, undocumented migrants are going to account for a portion of that. And I guess that would be, those would be my data points to justify, the facts that I shared insofar as why mass deportation places a greater strain on the American people than mass amnesty.
Okay. So you said that before. I'm asking you, has your model been implemented on a mass scale?
Has my model been implemented on a mass scale?
Mm-hmm.
Allowing individuals to come into a country and have, yeah, sure, when the EU was formed.
No.
Yeah,
I'm talking about modern time. I don't care about back then. I'm talking about now.
That is. Whoa, a huge shift.
It wasn't implemented on a mass scale because we didn't have hundreds of millions of people. I'm talking about now.
Wait, that is now. When the EU was formed, we specifically had all
They keep going back to the EU.
Because then all of a sudden a passport from France was valid in Germany or the UK, and we didn't see any negative outcomes there. And by the way, you're still not answering my question. You're just asking me where it's been implemented. Well, it's been listen to this. This has been test run with the undocumented migrants that are already in our country. Individuals, undocumented migrants, as they sec today, only help the American economy. And they would only help the American economy more if they're offered a pathway to residency or citizenship. Prove me wrong.
I can go back to something that actually happened because there was no strain or stress on the country when Barack Obama did mass deportation. It wasn't costing taxpayers millions and billions of dollars. It was actually very streamlined.
Wait.
No, it did not.
Wait, so you're saying that okay, well, so then is Donald Trump just the worst fucking president ever? The House Republicans think it'll cost them $175 billion up front.
How do they know that?
Dude, that is what they wrote in for the budget. In the House,
okay.
In the House Republican budget provision,
yeah, in HR 1968
for mass deportation. What do you mean? How do they know that? That is a funding allotted by Congress. That is how much Congress has allotted to be spent by the American taxpayer on mass deportation. Do you think it doesn't cost money to organize and charter ICE agents to identify and deport undocumented migrants? I mean, we're already paying $3-4 billion per year to deport individuals.
Dean, that's not what I'm saying, buddy.
To the El Salvadorian jail. I mean, what your claims here are just absolutely indisputable. Mass deportation costs money. And then mass amnesty is a way that individuals that are in our economy productively providing today will be able to productively provide to a higher degree. Mass amnesty.
How much is mass amnesty going to cost? How much is mass amnesty going to cost?
Yeah, I'm unaware of what the specific cost would be. However, it would be a positive investment, as it is the case that if we were to offer undocumented migrants in our country that are already working and already serving as productive providers that spend more and give more to our government than they would cost, they'd only be able to produce to a higher degree under the same material conditions, as they'd have a higher level of bargaining power with their employer. So when you spend money on giving undocumented migrants citizenship, well, then all of a sudden the undocumented migrants continue to pay $100 billion per year in taxes, but more with the additional bargaining power allotted to them because of their citizenship. When you spend money on mass deportation to get them out of our country, well, then you scapegoat and forego the additional revenue that would be given to our government because they have more bargaining power as citizens under mass amnesty, as well as you scapegoat and forego what they're paying in taxes and adding to our GDP already, as they'll no longer be a productive provider in the American economy. And that's just true definitionally speaking because you sent them out. You deported them.
Oh, okay, cool. Two questions. One, statement and two questions. So the statement is, you said you don't know how much it's going to cost the American people. So there's a potentiality it could cost more than mass deportation.
No. No. That's not true. The reason that's not true is because mass amnesty, you're spending money to make money. And under mass deportation, you're spending money to lose money, not to mention that it's likely more money would have to be spent on mass deportation because undocumented migrants are not cooperative with mass deportation, but they would be cooperative with mass amnesty. So for those two reasons, one generates a positive ROI, one actually generates a negative ROI. You're investing $175 billion in mass deportation to lose $100 billion per year in opportunity costs, which is what they already pay today. Plus, it would obviously be less frivolous to offer undocumented migrants a pathway to residency or citizenship, as they'd be cooperative with the plan compared to mass deportation, which they're not cooperative with.
Okay. Again, so you don't know how much it's going to cost to have them come in. My first question to you is,
how long? An ROI that makes money is always better than an ROI that loses money.
That's why I'm going to ask. That's why I pose this question that you won't let me answer. Ask, when does the ROI happen? How long before they get the return on investment?
They already are.
How, when you said your system's not been implemented yet? What are you talking
because
about?
Because undocumented migrants already pay $100 billion per year in taxes.
No,
by simply making the decision to not deport them and start considering the idea of mass amnesty, you're already making an ROI.
No, you're not,
yes,
because we're still paying for them.
Today.
We're still paying for them, and you never gave a solution for the influx of people that would be coming because of this expedited process.
Name the federal programs that benefit undocumented migrants.
It's not federal programs. It's the fact that we are paying for them.
Paying through them how? Through what programs?
So, for example, in several states, not just one, but we'll use Arizona. In Arizona, you have to have an additional insurance for undocumented drivers, because if they hit your vehicle, you got to have full coverage for you and full coverage for them, regardless of who hits who. But if they hit your vehicle, you have to pay out double and sometimes triple for them. That's a burden on the United States people. It's like that in Las Vegas. It's like that in New Mexico. It's like that in Arizona.
So if they're not undocumented and they can seek a driver's license and more conventional insurance, the insurance rates will go down. So what you're telling me
potentially,
is that if
we don't know that.
Deploy a plan of mass amnesty and offer undocumented migrants in America a pathway to residency or citizenship, well, fuck. Not only are we benefiting our government and our economy, but we're also benefiting the average everyday American, because their insurance rates will literally go down. Mass amnesty will make insurance rates go down under your perspective.
Now address the influx.
Address what influx? Like the influx that
because telling people that it's faster to get into the United States is going to cause more people to come here. You never addressed that.
Yes, I did address that. I absolutely did address that. I gave you historical precedent that doesn't occur in the EU, and then I went on to ask you, well, if it was the case that you knew for certain it wouldn't cause an influx that led to longer queues in ports of entry, would you support it? And you still said no. What that means is that pragmatic concerns such as
that's not an answer.
It is, because what it means is that pragmatic concerns is insofar as longer queue lines at the southern border is not a relevant reason insofar as why you support mass deportation over mass amnesty. All that I'm hearing now is that you literally cannot think of a reason why mass amnesty is a bad thing. So then you have to reappeal to speculative pragmatic concerns that you've already laid out upwards of 30 plus minutes ago that I've already disputed and demonstrated to not be relevant to you. So let's talk about things that are relevant to you. Name one way that mass amnesty would be bad.
You keep cutting me off whenever I try to get to it. So what I'm saying is just because you make the process faster doesn't mean it's going to make it easier. One, and then you don't have a
disagree.
No, you can disagree all you want, but you haven't provided a legitimate answer for the influx. Because say if we have 200,000 people coming now, and you make it a faster.
Oh, wait, no. Stop. I want to ask you a quick question. Let's assume.
Oh, goodness.
Let's assume that you are a scholar, and every weekend you write a 10-page research paper. Okay. So first weekend, from the start of your research to the end product of having this 10-page research paper, it took you 3 days. The second weekend, it took you 3 minutes. What weekend did you have an easier time writing your 10-page research report?
That's not valid. That's not valid to what my point. That's you keep obfuscating from my point.
That is.
I'm asking you if you make the process faster.
What makes it hard right now is the fact that it's so lengthy and expensive. If we reduce the amount of time that it takes, and we make it less expensive, well, then all of a sudden it is easier.
then you're going to have more people doing it, and you're going to be in the same boat you're in now.
I've already responded to this. We have no
There's already a million people per year that do it legally, Dean.
I've already responded to this. We have we have no historical precedent.
Bro, you cut me off every single time.
No.
You've not let me finish my statement.
I've responded to this 3 times.
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have.
You cut me off before I complete my statement every single time, and then you start muting me while you go on your tirade.
We went over this for 30 minutes.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
No, we didn't.
I'm so sorry.
No.
There's thousands of people watching.
How many people come into the United States legally every year?
No, I'm going to respond to the pragmatic concern. Now you're trying to pivot off of the pragmatic concern because you know that I've already addressed it.
No, you won't let me get to my point. You keep muting me. How many people come into the United States every year, bro?
Let me readdress
Legally.
your point. Your point is that if we were to implement the border provisions as I have described, then it will be the case that more people want to come into America as it is easier, that we will have longer queue lines at the border, correct?
Stop muting me. That's
that
weird.
your point?
I'm not cutting you off. Let me finish what I'm saying.
Did I just address
no,
did I
it's
just relay
going
your
to
point?
no, it's going
Okay,
to
so you-
increase exponentially. It's not going to be just like this small increase and then it's going to taper off. It's going to continue to increase because people are going to have more of an opportunity to get here faster. So now you have to not only contend with the million plus
God.
every single year that you have,
Lumberjack.
you're going to then have to contend with over the course of 4 years of Joe Biden, they had 1.5 million people come in
You're repeating what I
illegally.
just said.
That's 2.8 million people.
You're repeating
right
what I
there.
just said.
No, I'm not. Because then you're going to have to contend with the excess of unknown numbers coming in after that. How do you handle the people that you don't know? And don't compare it to the EU because you said you didn't want to talk about the people outside of the EU. You only wanted to discuss the people inside the EU traveling from country to, like France to Germany, because you didn't want to address the issue of the people coming outside of the EU that's actually unaliving their countries right now. So how do you handle that if you expedite the process?
Okay, so thank you for repeating exactly what I just said. The reason why you repeated exactly what I just said is because you've already asked me this question 4 times. So I will answer it for a 5th. I don't mind, because I think at some points it is important to revisit these things so we could better understand each other's positions. So once again, you were saying, Dean, if we expedite the legal processes of migration into America, if we make it so easy to attain residency or citizenship, where we're only denying individuals with prior violent offenses, well, then all of a sudden, there's going to be people from all over the world that want to come into America through these new awesome programs, which could lead to longer wait times at the border. I'm going to go ahead and repeat my responses. Are you ready to listen? There's open borders between all 50 states in America. We don't see these terrible problems of people from Utah trying to get into Colorado because there's this open border where they could just drive across a road. That's one. Second response. We saw countries with their own forms of border control and security in Europe prior to the creation of the EU. Germany had its own separate, distinct border patrol from France. French individuals could not freely migrate into Germany. When the EU was created, there was no restriction on commerce and movement between countries inside of Europe, and we did not see any drastic outcomes. There's two historical precedents set to debunk your claim. The most important thing in which I'm saying, though, to contend with your claim is a very simple fact. Okay? It is on you to argue that if we were to make the legal means of entry into America better, that America, a country that takes in $29 trillion per year, a country that you think is the best on earth, a country that you think is far ahead of any other country on earth, wouldn't be able to take it when historically it's only produced good outcomes.
Okay, so you were comparing.
Oh wait, actually, that's actually not even the most important part. The most important part is this: we've already gone over everything I just stated, and I asked you, Lumberjack, hypothetically, if there was a way for a country to manage legal ports of entry into America, as I've already described, would you support it? You answered no.
No, I didn't.
You did.
No, I didn't.
So you would
So
support
one,
my
you're
plan?
comparing apples to oranges.
So then answer it again. So you would support my plan if it was practically feasible?
Yes, if it was feasible and wouldn't put a burden on the American people that already reside here.
Perfect. So ignore all border policy. Let's assume that we just have the same Trump border policy implemented right now, but we offered all undocumented migrants already in America a pathway to residency or citizenship.
No.
Why?
Because you said assume. I'm not assuming anything, and you keep comparing apples to oranges with the EU,
right,
bro.
Lumberjack, because you don't want to talk about...
Why do you keep muting me and cutting me off?
Because what you're doing is pivoting, and I just proved it.
No, I'm not.
I'm talking about what
I'm attacking your argument.
I'm talking about what we do with undocumented migrants that are already inside of America, and you're talking about border security.
Okay.
I'm only trying to have a conversation with you about what we do with the undocumented migrants that are already inside of America. If we do a mass deportation or we offer them a pathway to residency or citizenship, you won't debate me on that because you're scared, because you know you can't give me a reason that mass deportation is better than mass amnesty. So you rather would like to relate back to speculative concerns about border policy that are unclear. So I want to make myself clear. Right now, I'm talking about what to do with the undocumented migrants that are already in America, ignoring border policy. I think it's better to offer them a pathway to residency or citizenship. I'm not pivoting. This has been my one question the whole time.
Yes, because you won't let me attack your argument you made earlier. That's why you keep talking over me and muting me.
I'm going back to the original question.
Okay, so your argumentation for your example you say you got a dunk on with the EU is comparing apples to oranges, because you're talking about multiple countries having a union in which they can travel in between each other, not people outside of those multiple countries coming into them. Like the issue they're having now, the United States would be like the European Union in this instance. Different states would be your individual nations. Those states and nations don't have an issue with traveling in between each other. They never have. However, we have had issues with people outside of our country coming inside of our country, causing a strain on the nations. These, just like the EU is now having, where they're having a certain population coming outside of the European Union, inside, and causing a stress on the European Union. They're facing the same issues we are, if not worse, right now. So you would have to attack the fact that they don't have these closed border policies. And why is it now that their current situation, for the example that you use, is taxing the European Union?
I believe that you're confused because I'm talking about before the European Union existed, when there was no union with countries, to then when the EU did exist and there was a union between countries. At one point, there was closed borders between Germany and France. And with the conception of the EU, there's no longer closed borders between Germany and France. If you want me to frame my position insofar as what border policy I would support that is related to the EU, I'd merely describe as many legal ports of entry into America, like simply screening individuals for prior violent offenses, as a union between America and every other country on earth. Like it is a one-to-one comparison, but I will say once again for the fifth time now that I've described with very clear language how it is not a false equivalency, that it is the case that once again you told me you would not support this plan if the pragmatic concerns that you were speculating were not present. And I want to ask you about what we're doing.
I already said yes. Yes, 3 times you said I said no. I said yes. So I agreed with you.
No. The first time you did say no. But I'm asking you seriously about what we do with the undocumented migrants that are already in America. And I've been trying to ask
the ones that are already in America, I believe, needs to be deported.
For the undocumented migrants that are already in America, to go back to the one question I've been asking you this entire time, should we offer
they need to be deported?
Sir, let me ask you a question. Would you stop interrupting me like a toddler? Thank you. So for the undocumented migrants that are already in America, can you name one reason why mass deportation produces better outcomes for America, the American economy, or the people inside of America compared to mass amnesty insofar as offering undocumented migrants that have not committed violent crimes a pathway to residency or citizenship?
We have had no example of what you're asking or wanting to be done implemented at all, but we have had mass deportation implemented where it actually bettered our country under Barack Obama. It's one of the best things he did as a president. So until you can show me a instance of where you of what you're wanting to implement on a mass scale for the entirety of the country, I would have to assume, or actually presume based off a lack of information, that yours wouldn't work.
Okay, awesome. So I appreciate you for the response. So first of all, you said that mass deportation under Obama of undocumented migrants that have not committed violent crimes led to good outcomes. What good outcomes did it lead to? Please demonstrate to me specifically what mass deportation of undocumented migrants that did not commit violent crimes under Obama led to. What are the good outcomes that led to?
Less crime from those undocumented, less taxation on the people to take care of those people in their respective areas where they were ordering them at, and less strain on having to deal with these people on the roads when they were undocumented, unlicensed, and stuff like that, causing car accidents.
Okay, thank you. So
less insurance claims.
First and foremost, when you say less crime, so undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to commit violent crimes compared to natural U.S.-born citizens. If you're just saying less crime overall, I mean limiting the birth rates, limiting the birth rates of citizens. Oh, wait, what did you just say?
There's more of us. Of course, we're going to commit more crimes.
It's a per capita statistic.
There's more of us. Of course, we're going to, per capita, commit more crimes.
Sir, what does per capita mean?
I know what per capita means, but when you take these individuals and spread them out all over the country, and then you take a 10,000 foot view and say per capita instead of zooming in on their individual areas,
he doesn't know.
Of course, there's more. Yes, I do. I know what per capita means, but when you guys give your per capita argumentation, you conflate overall with per capita, and you move in between those two things.
No, I don't. So when I say
go ahead.
Undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely than U.S. citizens to commit violent crimes, all that I'm saying is in accounting for the fact that undocumented migrants are a minority of the overall demographic of humans in America, and we compare one undocumented migrant to what is relative of one U.S. citizen, the undocumented migrant is less likely to commit a violent crime. This is like saying that, there's also a stat that men per capita are more likely to drunk drive than women, okay? And this is like saying, well, there's less women that drive. And I'm like, well, we're accounting for the fact that less women drive than men, and still yet men are more likely when accounting for the proportional differences. So when I say that undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to commit violent crimes than natural U.S.-born citizens, I'm accounting for the fact that there's more American citizens, and yet yet U.S. citizens are still 2 times more likely to commit violent crimes. My source for this would be PNAS, as well as common sense. I mean, obviously, undocumented migrants are going to be less willing to commit violent crimes compared to citizens, as the consequences are more drastic.
What?
You heard me.
There's no D penalty for undocumented. There's a D penalty for us in certain states, whereas in those same states, those people wouldn't get the D penalty for committing these crimes. So when you go, let's go take hypothetical. If we took 1 million U.S. people and put them in
don't pivot. Okay, we could debate.
I'm not pivoting.
We could debate the last part that I said about the consequences for undocumented migrants being more drastic. But I want you to concede first that undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to commit violent crimes.
I'm not conceding to that.
You're gonna So
I'm not conceding. I'm not pivoting.
Talk about the meat
I'm not conceding. I'm not pivoting.
And then we could talk about my second claim that they face more drastic consequences. But first, I want you to concede that undocumented.
I'm not conceding to that.
Okay, why?
I'm not conceding to it.
I indicated to source that it's true. Can you indicate to me a source that it's false?
Because if you would stop muting me and let me answer my question without interrupting me, you would get my retort.
Yep.
So if you took 1 million United States citizens and put them in another country per capita, because that's per 100,000, and you put them in there, would that crime rate increase there? Since Americans are 2.5 times more likely to commit crimes?
Well, I'm confused with what you're asking. If we were to take a million U.S. citizens and place them into another country, and let's just assume that the individuals from the other country are just as likely to commit a crime as an undocumented migrant in America, then yes, in that country per capita, the U.S. citizens would be 2 times more likely to commit crimes than the natural-born citizens of the other country, assuming that the natural-born citizens of the other country are just as likely as undocumented migrants in America to commit violent crimes. You kind of did give me a little bit of a non sequitur there, but I tried to make it make sense of that. Makes any sense? At the end of the day, we've been collecting data insofar as crime rates and arrest for crime committed by undocumented migrants and comparing that to natural U.S.-born citizens since the 19th century. It is a very common understood fact because of the data that we've collected and over the last 100 years, that undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to commit violent crimes than natural-born citizens. And I was able to indicate to you an incredibly reputable source for this, that being PNAS. However, of course, you can find
I don't know what
evidence
that
for this
is.
outside of PNAS. All
What
that I'll
what
just
is that?
simply PNAS is a research organization that has been studying the arrest rates for everybody in America and comparing that of natural U.S.-born citizens to undocumented migrants since the 1970s. I just simply ask you to indicate to me a source similar to PNAS, another research institute that indicate otherwise. I'm led to believe that you won't be able to find any. Is that it is like saying
Yeah,
that
the
you're just
FBI.
that.
The FBI.
Okay, show me where on
So
the FBI website
we
indicate
we
that
saw
undocumented
that.
migrants have a higher per capita crime rate, and do not give me a correlation causation fallacy.
No,
You're
I'm
about to
not.
say that we've seen
No,
crime
I'm
rates
not.
go up.
No,
under the
you won't
Biden-Harris
let me finish.
administration.
No, I wasn't going to do that at all.
Okay.
No, I was going to say that. Well, I was going to mention the Biden-Harris administration, but
what I
not
mean?
in the way you were saying. Is that they lied about the numbers?
Yes, you're saying that they lied about the numbers. Crimes didn't actually go down under the Biden-Harris administration. They went up. And
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Shitties, false reporting.
That's not what I'm saying.
So I was
That's
right.
not what
Thank
I'm
you.
saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they fudged numbers, and because they fudged the Bureau of Labor Statistic numbers, they say that he created all these jobs. Then it proved that they 818,000 jobs he lied about. Then an additional 641,000 jobs he was found to have lied about. So that he had the BLS.
I'll debate that later. We're not talking about jobs.
No,
We're
but
talking
I'm
about
saying
per
they
capita
did the
crime
same
rates
thing
of
with the
undocumented
crimes.
migrants. Oh my God, are you
they-
saying that our government has been fudging the numbers insofar as arrest rates for undocumented migrants for the last 120 years? You're conspiracy
Yes.
theorists. Yes?
It's not a conspiracy theory. Yes.
Oh my God. Wow. Dude, listen to this guy. Lumberjack. You're unreal.
Bro, you keep muting me.
So-
This is not a conversation anymore. You keep muting
So
me.
I just want to clarify that you think that the FBI has been doing this for over 120 years just for undocumented migrants, right?
No, crime in general.
Oh, okay. So then it proportionally apply to undocumented migrants and U.S. citizens. So it's still irrelevant, even if true.
Not necessarily, because you don't know. So, for example, we have the perfect example. You know, the 5 guys that beat up the 2 cops in New York never were arrested.
I know that what you're telling me is absolutely irrelevant.
It's beating up a cop of crime.
Unless you'd be able to give me any fucking evidence that undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to be arrested.
I'm asking you a question
compared to natural U.S.-born citizens.
I'm asking you a question.
I see your question as a completely irrelevant non sequitur, and the reason why I see your question as a completely irrelevant non sequitur is because I believe no matter how I respond or answer your question, that it does not demonstrate that undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to get arrested for crimes compared to natural U.S.-born citizens. The only way you could dispute the facts provided to us by PNAS and similar institutions of reputation would be to demonstrate that for the last 150 years, undocumented migrants have consistently been 2 times less likely to get arrested for any and all crimes, particularly violent crimes, compared to natural U.S.-born citizens. Do you have any evidence to demonstrate that that is true?
Can you show me where they have 150 years of documentation on this PNAS.org?
PNAS has only been recording it for 50 years. However, crime rates have been
Okay.
recorded for the last 150 years.
Okay. So can you answer my question?
Like to show you where the other 100 years are?
No. I don't care about that. I want you to answer my question because you're basing this solely off of arrests, not violent crimes.
So this
Because
is
we know
arrest
that beating
for
a cop
violent
is a
crimes.
crime. Yes, being arrested for a crime and committing a crime are not the same thing.
I know a lot of people are falsely arrested.
Yes, but a lot of people are not arrested as well. Kind of like
Okay.
the 5 that beat up the cop,
Yeah.
the 2 cops. Kind of like the 3 guys that raped that woman at the Statue of Liberty. There was no arrest made for those people.
Yeah, none of what you're saying matters unless you could demonstrate that undocumented.
Wow.
migrants have-
Wow. So you're
doesn't-
okay with people being assaulted and raped? Cool.
Okay, all right.
Because it doesn't matter.
Lumberjack, I'm gonna go ahead and kick you for being like literally so fucking
I thought so.
disingenuous. Like that was like the most disingenuous thing I've ever heard. So it doesn't matter insofar as justifying your position. And for you to say, wow, so you're okay to grape to that to a fucking grape victim is just holy moly bad faith. Just to kind of reiterate, what I was saying insofar as why it doesn't matter was because unless he could demonstrate that undocumented migrants have been statistically speaking 2 times less likely to get arrested for violent crimes compared to natural U.S.-born citizens for the last 50 years, that his point doesn't fucking matter and proves nothing. But I guess his takeaway from that is that I don't care about grape. I don't care about murder, which is just the most bad faith conclusion ever. It's literally so bad faith that it's laughable. It's literally so bad faith that I completely understand and acknowledge that if any person in the comment section that is saying Dean L turned their brain on for 30 seconds, you would agree with me. It's literally so bad faith that I'm actually going to try to get you to do that. Wow. Wait, I'm okay. We're going to do a quick lesson for everybody watching. I'm going to walk you through with very simple language in less than 60 seconds how what Lumberjack just said was so bad faith it warranted a kick. Let's start off with what I claimed. Dean claimed that undocumented migrants are 2 times less likely to be arrested for violent crimes compared to U.S. citizens. My source for this is per capita crime rates from PNAS, and which have been studied for the last 50 years. Lumberjack's response to this is to say there's people that beat up a cop in New York that weren't arrested. There was somebody that raped a woman that wasn't arrested. He was just saying sometimes people commit crimes and don't get arrested for them. I then say that this does not challenge my position at all, and I don't care unless you have evidence to demonstrate that for the last 50 years, undocumented migrants have been 2 times less likely to get arrested for violent crimes compared to natural-born citizens. And then he says, wow, Dean, you don't care about grape? You don't care about murder? Warranting the kick for the most bad faith position of all time. We are going to go ahead and move on to the next guest. I'm really happy to see that everyone in here understands exactly why I kicked him for being the most bad faith guest on my live since I've started streaming. I'm really happy to see that everybody understands.